Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 2, and today marks round 2 of the NXTCC as the story continues with our drivers making their way from the United Kingdom to Spain for the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. As they get ready to go racing tonight in another free race round, our drivers will be taking on the national layout of the circuit, which typically affiliated with being a ultimate testing circuit with its wide range of corners, sectors and sequences. The national layout that our drivers will be taking to puts an emphasis on the most technical aspects of the Spanish circuit and raises the question, who can find the flow and the rhythm immediately in order to be able to come out on top? Well, of course, we're going to be answering that question across our Pro and our Pro-Am classes over our free races tonight, and our schedule for tonight is as follows. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. In just under 19 minutes time, we'll be heading into our qualifying session, 20 minutes in length, all of our drivers out of the circuit looking to put put in their best possible times as they practice in the background right now and look to potentially put in some indicative times. Alternatively, try to scaremonger other drivers into thinking they've got the pace under race conditions, but you never know what could be in store. Of course, with not everybody showing their pace until we go into qualifying. We'll then go straight away into sprint race number 1. All 3 races, of course, sprints, and that'll be 17 laps of racing action, kicking off at approximately 10 to 9 tonight. After that, we're taking a brief break before returning to the build-up for race number 2 at 25 past 9, and that'll be another 17-lap race, but the difference will be that the grid will not be set by a qualifying session, and we'll come on to that very shortly, and then we'll be taking a second break before getting ready to go racing one last time in, of course, the partial reverse grid sprint race in race number 3, 17 laps in length, and that'll kick off at approximately what will be 5 past 10, or at least that's what we'll be building up towards it. Now, this broadcast is being brought to you live as of this Tuesday, the 6th of December, and you can tune in by 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to TX141 on Twitch. Secondly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing to tune in via the official broadcast there. And last but not least, if you're more Facebook inclined, we can always go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing and tune in officially there. But who am I? Your host and commentator will allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight and indeed over the entirety of the season as the story continues here in Spain. And well, what a season opener we had last time out. And let's take a quick look at that calendar just to remind you of what we've had and what still lies in wait along the way. Well, as we look to our calendar, then we could see that we kicked off, of course, last time out on the 29th of November at Donington Park, running around the Grand Prix Lounge. And there in our season opener, we saw plenty of markers being laid down by drivers across the classes. Mikey Doble perhaps being the biggest name, and you'll see why when we take a look at the Pro Championship standings shortly. But Mikey Doble is 3 wins out of 3 overall and in the Pro class, really putting down that affirmation that he is looking to be the #1 contender this season in the Pro class and overall in the Championship. But of course, going from the British circuit, which was a variety of sectors, indeed fast-flying corners and undulations. Now as we make our way to Spain in the highly technical circuit, it's going to be a complete paradigm shift in terms of the nature of the racing, where it's all going to be about battling on the brakes and making sure you can keep that flow through the corners, but also with those heavy braking zones and some major direction changes and also some very high curbs, our drivers will need to try and get as close as possible to those apex curves, but also avoid hitting them directly on, because if they do so, they might find themselves being knocked off circuit, if not taking the car out of the race in action. But after today, we'll then be heading to Belgium for Circuit Zolder on the 13th of December, and there at the Belgian circuit, the second favourite Belgian circuit in most people's calendars, we're going to see a very fast evening of racing there with the Circuit Zolder and one of the fastest average speeds of our circuits on this calendar before we make our way to Austria for the Red Bull Ring on the 20th of December to wrap up the first half of the season, go into the Christmas break. We'll then be returning as a round number 5 on the 3rd of January for Twinring Motegi in Japan as we kick off an all-new year of racing with NXTGEN Racing, and there at the Japanese circuit, which is typically featured on more domestic calendars, we're going to be seeing our drivers take on a circuit that, whilst lesser known, is by no means going to be lesser in terms of the racing action it creates. And then we'll be heading for round number 6 to Watkins Glen International in the United States of America at the much-loved Glen circuit, where we'll see our drivers take on the cambered corners before they make their way back to Germany and back to continental Europe for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben on the 17th of January, a circuit which, of course, synonymous with some very interesting words from John Clennon, the original British touring car driver, and we'll tell you a little bit more about those when we get to the penultimate round. And then our season finale on the 24th of January will be wrapping it all up in Brazil at the Interlagos circuit. And of course, what better circuit to wrap up the championship and a circuit affiliated with championship drama, particularly in Formula 1, and indeed the words "Is That Glock" still resonating out within the ears of many of us who were there to see it. But as our drivers get ready to go, and indeed what a fantastic calendar, and we take a look at the standings, you can see here, start off with the overall standings, which sees all of our drivers merged together in a single classification. Mikey Doble leads the way on 80 points. There were 5 bonus points from last time out, and really taking the lion's share of points out of the field, with the fact that he does already have a 21-point advantage over Chris Daines. Second place driver there, but you can see the compression from Chris Daines to Adam Delmont with Will Redford between. Only 7 points separating the trio, and that goes to show you how close they were together and spoiling for a fight amongst one another and giving Mikey Doble the opportunity to peel away, albeit Mikey Doble had to really deliver on the battle in action in race number 3 at Donington Park, and therefore those 80 points were well deserved, but indeed all of our drivers putting on an absolutely stellar show. Sam Smith then in P5 on 38 points leads the run of the rest of the field with Jamie Drury behind. Michael Leese, you'll notice, has been promoted to the Pro class based on his performances in round number 1. And of course, until we get to the conclusion of round 3, drivers can be promoted or demoted across classes. Martin Shirley as well, Pro and Driver now promoted to Pro, much like Michael Leach put on a stellar show, and they were the 2 superstars of the class last time out at Donington Park, and that's why they've been promoted. Congratulations to them. We look forward to seeing how they get on in class tonight. And then Kieran Sharp and John Higgins Jr. completing the top 10. Best of the rest there, Andrew Pike with the field following on behind, and we can see as we continue to make our way on down the overall championship order. Daniel Holman, Ian Manners, both in P15 and P16 respectively, and 2 big names who lost out massively last time out at Donington Park, both contenders for the Pro-Am wins, and we look forward to seeing how they get on tonight. And also you'll see that in P18, Sebastian Bruberg, he has also been promoted to the Pro class from the Pro-Am class. We've had 3 promotions, no demotions going into tonight, and we have to wait and see how our new promotees get on. But as we look outside of the top 20 in the overall standings, Nick Clemens there, P21 in a difficult day of racing, but still 1 point ahead of Isaac Doble, with Bobby Thompson then leading all of our drivers yet to score points. Indeed, a good number of these names you did not see take to the circuit last time out, but we're expecting many of them to be taken to the Spanish circuit tonight. But as we then look to our individual drivers' championships in terms of the Pro classification, first and foremost, we can see here Mikey Doble again on 80 points, leading the way ahead of Chris Daines, Will Redford and Adam Delmont. But as we look to the Pro points condensed together here and focusing on the individual class, you can see that Sam Smith being in a bit of a no man's land in that P5 position, 15 points off of Adam Delmont, and at the same time 11 points clear of Jamie Dory. And the plan for Sam Smith will be to try and run away from Jamie Dory and Michael Leeson and Martin Shirley, but at the same time close the distance to Adam Delmont. If he can keep himself safe from being drawn into a P5 championship battle early on, then that makes him a bit of an underdog in the hunt for the top 5 spaces, and indeed looking to go after the top 3, if not the championship win come the end of the season. Gavin Garner and John Higgins Jr. they're completing the top 10, with Adam McNally in P11 on 16 points, only ahead on Andrew Pike versus on Countback. And then we can see Kieran Sharp just behind, with the 2 Sim Racing Collective drivers coming together alongside John Higgins Jr. in the final race of the evening after they started on the front row together, and it was curtains before they'd even made a complete lap, and a difficult one to end their opening round. Sebastian Brew there in P14, ahead of Bram Clays, Nick Clemens, Gianni Perrone, Bobby Thompson and Wayne Douglas. And as we come to the Prime classification, we can see that with the promotions of Michael Lees, Martin Shirley and also Sebastian Bruberg, Matthew Addy now leads the Prime class after round 1, with an advantage of 17 points over Daniel Holmer. However, the trick to Matthew Addy's success, consistency across all 3 races, and he will need to do that well tonight as well if he wants to stand clear of Daniel Holmer, Alan McCain and Ian Manners, because all 3 drivers had an opportunity to win at Donington Park, but they lost out due to either instance or not quite being able to take the full fight to Michael Lees and Martin Shirley. But you can imagine tonight, now that they've been freed, the chains have been taken away, they'll be looking to be unleashed and on the offensive versus Matthew Addy, so it's going to be interesting to see how the 4 stack up. Let's not also count out Lee Horn on 37 points as well, equal to Ian Manners, but behind on Countback. He's definitely a driver who's gone a bit under the radar in round number 1, albeit some brilliant battling from Lee Horn, and he could well be within the fight for the top 3 tonight. Reece Watt there in P6, just ahead of Philip Bruberg, and then Luke Jones, Mark Sykes and Jason Morris completing the top 10, with Isaac Doble best the rest in P11 ahead of Jonathan Collins, Joseph Doble P13 and Trev Anderson P14. And Trev Anderson, a driver to watch out for after a difficult day of racing at Donington Park, and you can imagine he'll be looking to bounce back tonight, as he had a lot of pace, but he just was not given the opportunity to demonstrate it over the 3 races. Sean Scudder there in P15 on 8 points. He'll be looking to have a better run of form tonight after difficulties in the season opener, with Davide Favo, Nigel Stott, Elwin Sykes, Daniel Weston and John Higgins Sr. completing the top 20. And then outside the top 20, but not to be forgotten about, we have Josh Brown, Liam Silkstone, Matt Emmons, Paul Scott, Rob McGregor, Shane Abbott, Stephen Vessels and also Thomas Delaney. Now coming on to our team's championship standings, we can see here that after 1 round, there's a clear advantage going the way of NDA Honda Racing, with their stellar set of results in the season opener, and they have an advantage extending to over 40 points, 43 to be exact, over Excite Racing. But could the tables turn tonight, of course, with the circuit being different in calibre, and of course the field more likely to be mixed up as a result, especially in the run to turn number 1. Verano Motorsport, they're not too far behind it in P3, and you'll notice that Verano Motorsport has been merged together as a single team rather than the EU and the UK divisions, and that is because of the balancing of the teams. Indeed, the number of teams having 5 drives, and Verano Motorsport opting to merge together rather than stay distinctly apart. We can see iRacing Esports there in P4 on 40 points, 14 clear of the Sim Racing Collective, and the Sim Racing Collective will know in their hearts they should be in P4 at the moment based on how they were performing in round number 1. But of course, you have to get to the checker flag to do so, and that means the Sim Racing Collective have got to try and redeem themselves tonight. And then SimSet Racing, 2 points behind it in P6, 4 points clear of HSR, with Next Gen Racing Yellow, Bright Esports, and Next Gen Racing Blue competing at the top 10. And then we can see outside alongside the top 10, we have JW Motorsport, CSA Racing, and 52 Zilla with Crest Racing. But as we come onto the Manufacturer Championship, of course, and this will be your success ballast for today, as applied to the manufacturers' cars, we can see that the Hondas, of course, dominant in round number 1 at Donington Park, and we're expecting the Honda to be fast on a single lap around the Spanish circuit tonight, but carrying an extra 75 kilograms, that will cause the front tyre wear degradation to be extremely high over the race distance, and we're expecting the Hondas to really struggle in the latter third of the race, and from lap 12 onwards, we should see their pace really start to slope off in the corners compared to their peers. The Veloster there will be carrying 50 kilograms of weight, the Hyundai Veloster, and then we'll have 25 kilograms on the Hyundai Elantra, and the Audi RS3 drivers will have no weight added to their cars as they're currently the lowest placed in the Manufacturers' Championship. As for our circuit for tonight, where we play the story out, it'll be the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya National. And as you can see here, the circuit located in Montmeló, Barcelona, in the region of Catalonia in Spain. Well, this circuit map provided us by SimRacingWiki.com really says it all when it comes to how technical this circuit is. And thank you to SimRacingWiki.com for the circuit map. This circuit consisting of 11 corners. It is short in nature, with an average lap time in the region of about 1 minute 18 for our drivers. But the emphasis will be on those heavy braking zones to begin with, starting with the run to turn number 1, where whilst it's a wide hairpin, our drivers will need to come hard on the brakes and make sure they stop in time to make the early apex before they power out in the run through turns 2 and 3. Going through turns 2 and 3, we're expecting plenty of drivers there to ride high in the apex curve 2, and that may just cause them to understeer a little bit wide and deep through turn number 3 and potentially incur the wrath of our independent race director. And as they come up the hill through turn number 4, a blind right-hand apex, they'll look to carry the speed as much as possible before charging down towards the turn 5 hairpin. Coming into the braking zone there, it'll be battles on the brakes all the way, and then it starts to narrow down as our drivers will have to settle into line of stern sequence as they come through turns 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, which is all about direction change and a nasty chicane at the end of turns 9 and 10, where they have to be careful of the raised apex curves, and then they'll make their way through the fast right-hander at turn number 11 to do it all again over 17 laps in each of our races. Now, to give you a quick reminder of our rules for tonight, firstly, this is a fixed setup series where all the setups have been provided to our drivers, and the only thing they're allowed to tweak are the brake biases on the car. The driver classes are currently provisional, as we said earlier, and they shall be finalised after round number 3. And just a recap as to how the grids will be set for the races. Race 1's grid will be set based on results of qualifying. Race 2's grid shall be set based on results of race number 1, where the winner of race number 1 will be starting on pole for race number 2, and, well, you then go down the order all the way to our last place finisher starts at the very back of the field. And the race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on the results of race 2, with a reversal position being drawn live from between 6th place and 12th place. We'll cut over to the commentary booth and I'll do the live draw. And of course, P9 cannot be drawn because it was selected as of last week's round at Donington, so we will not see P9 in the pool tonight. Each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available in each race, and each race shall conclude either after the allotted lap amount, of course 17 laps, or if we reach 30 minutes due to safety cars and incidents. And as for some of our additional rules as well, let's just give you a quick recap with regards to race stewarding. We do have an independent race director who is stewarding the races for track limit infringements and the deployment of the safety car. Penalties will be applied for track limit infringements as follows. The first 3 warnings, drivers get no penalty, they literally just get a warning. The 4th warning will be a 5-second post-race time penalty. The 5th warning, that goes up to 10 seconds. And on the 6th warning, that will be the final warning, they get a drive-through penalty. Now, drive-through penalties must be served within 3 laps, and racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. That's enough rules, regulations, and everything in between. I know what you're all here for. Let's head back to those live pictures as our drivers get ready to go racing. And, well, speaking of the man right now who'll be absolutely itching for the fight to continue his run of form from round number 1, it's none other than NDA Honda Racing's Mikey Doble as he makes his way up towards turn number 4 at the moment, and really the man for everybody to beat as he comes charging on through turn number 4 at the moment. And as he makes his way on around, of course, he will be the driver that everyone will be looking to in terms of that lap time, albeit we have seen that Sam Swift's gone a little bit faster in this final practice session. But of course, as we said earlier, practice is not a true indicator of the pace of our drivers, and some could be holding it in reserve until they go into that qualifying session. But as we look to the chats there, whether you're in the Twitch, the Facebook, or the YouTube chat, do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. We can see all 3 chats, and I hope you're all doing well, ladies and gentlemen. And we do say hello to Katie Eames in the Facebook chat and also to Craig Pearce, and welcome to you both, and Craig Pearce in the Twitch chat. But as our drivers get ready to go racing, we look a little bit further down the field to Trevor Anderson, and we talked about Trevor Anderson earlier on in terms of a driver who had a difficult run of form in what was the season opener, but still one to definitely watch out for in terms of the pace he was demonstrating and his ability to put in some absolutely stellar laps, and and he, I think, is going to be one of those drivers we do need to watch out for tonight. But as we look from him to also Reese Watt here, another one of the JW Motorsport drivers, and currently 5th fastest in this practice session, over on the fastest Prime driver as well. And again, JW Motorsport running a very distinctive livery on their Hondas as they make the way on around as he takes quite a bit of the curb in with only 4 minutes of this practice session to go. And Reese Watt, another driver who had a lot of pace, but we saw it taken away race after race at Donington simply because he was caught up in incidents which were not necessarily his fault, but that's the way it went, and therefore he had those challenges and those difficulties which he had to try and play out and play through. And of course, we also look to Kieran Sharp here, the Sim Racing Collective driver in what is the Hyundai Elantra, as he makes his way through turn number 4, fast flying through on there as he brings the car around and looking to keep it nice and set as he heads up towards turn number 5. But as we do wait to go racing, I do believe I'm going to be given the opportunity here to have a brief chat with what is Reese Watt, who's currently making his way on around, and we're just going to try and catch him directly from the feed in the car, and I believe he will be joining us as of now as he makes his way into the braking zone there for turn number 5. And he joins me live from the car at the moment, unless I'm very much mistaken. No, we haven't quite got him at the moment. We will just welcome that, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a brief moment, as we do seem to have lost the feed to our driver. Bit of technical issues there, but we try to work through those as best as we possibly can. And in fact, as he does join me right now from on board the car, Reese, as you make your way through the chicane for JW Motorsport, looking good tonight, very strong pace as well in this final practice session. How are you feeling for the Spanish circuit?
Just hoping to stay consistent. Not sure where that pace came from earlier on this evening, but if I can bring that to the race, it'll be really good.
Oh, indeed, and we were just saying on the broadcast before you joined us from the car, difficult day at Donington last time out, 3 races where I don't think you quite had the opportunity to show the pace. Indeed, Trev and yourself didn't quite have the opportunity to show the pace behind the car, but are we going to be expecting a different story from JW Motorsport tonight?
We hope so. It's the best way, I think. Like last week, we got on track, and it was just a chance to get familiar with everyone that's racing that night. And yeah, we'll just go out there, do our best, and see what we can come up with.
Alrighty, Reese, well, won't keep you any longer. I'll let you focus, you get ready for qualifying, but thank you for joining us, and good luck in the races tonight.
Thank you. Cheers.
So as we do let Reese go, then he focuses on the practice all the way to the end here right now. And it took us a little bit of a while there to get the patch through with regards to his onboard, but we did work that technical issue out in the end. Definitely sounding a bit confident tonight, and well, will that confidence be placed? Well, that would be the big question as he makes his way around. And not sure where he's got that lap coming from. I think that's at his fingertips then. That goes to show you the talent underneath the hands of the driver, indeed the feet as well, as he makes his way across that timeline once again. But also we see here Nick Clibbens making his way around for iRacing Esports, and Clibbens perhaps one of the unluckiest drivers in our season opener, having quite a few knockabouts over the course of the evening, and he'll definitely be one driver who'll be thinking about what can he do to have a better night tonight. And as he makes his way there into turns 9 and 10, I think we may be able to get a brief word from Clibbens as he gets ready to go, and we're just going to see if we can catch him as he makes his way across that timeline as he comes roaring on through. And I believe Nick Clibbens joins us right now from on board the car. Nick, a difficult day at Donington Park last week. You seem to be the unluckiest driver in the field, being knocked about left, right and centre for iRacing Esports. But tonight, currently P3, looking good out there. How are you feeling for Spain?
Yeah. I'm hoping I don't get taken out. That's one of the main things tonight, so I might hold back a bit tonight. But yeah, it's just kind of...
Indeed, looks like you're not holding back at the moment in this practice session. Just before we head into qualifying, do you think a top 10 in qualifying is viable?
I'll try my best. 75 kilos definitely shows on this car on this track.
Oh, indeed, I was going to ask, we're expecting quite high tyre wear for all the Hondas tonight, but what else is that extra weight doing? Is it making the car lean quite heavily into the corners?
Just sluggish on the uphill section, really. The rest of it's fine, just the uphills it struggles.
Well, we'll have to wait and see whether those struggles come on through or whether you can work around them. But with that, Nick, qualifying's about to get underway. We'll leave you to it. Good luck in the races.
Thank you very much.
And as we let Nick Clibbons go and let him focus on going racing, it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, 20 minutes of qualifying action, and who will come out on top come the end? Well, let's find out, as we do see Jamie Dory making his way out of the pit lane immediately and charging his way on down towards turn number 1 as he comes roaring on through here. We're going to give our drivers a couple of laps just to get themselves all acquainted, of course, because this being a very short circuit, it does mean that tyre temperature takes quite a significant time to build on up. But we heard there in our pre-qualifying interviews on board our drivers, we heard from firstly what was Reese Watt from JW Motorsports and also from Nick Clibbons from iRacing Esports, and both drivers with misfortune at Donington Park, but having an opportunity today to turn that around. As we see their K-teams in the Facebook chat saying good luck to the Verano boys tonight, and also a shout out to X-Heights Racing, Adam Delmont, and also to McNally, and I do believe that is referring to, unless I am very much mistaken, Adam McNally as they get ready to go. But as we see Alan McCain making his way on around, we can see here right now the iRacing Esports driver getting himself all composed and settled, and of course one of our big names in the Pro-Am class here, and could have a huge opportunity with some of the class being shaken up and some drivers being extricated from the class and moved into the Pro class. And we will have our eyes, of course, on Sebastian Bruberg, also Michael Lees and Martin Shirley with regards to how they get on, given now they're going to be competing in a higher caliber of class in terms of what the expected pace is. Of course, our Pro-Ams are no less in terms of drivers than our pros, and let's make that distinction very clear. It's only in terms of relative pace that they're segregated, not through their ability, as our drivers come roaring on around right now. But as they look to make their way onto their first flying laps very shortly, we can see here right now very cramped circuit, and you can get a feel for that from the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen, whereby we have a grand total of over 30 cars out of the circuit, and that means it is cramped. In fact, I think we've got in attendance approximately 33 drivers in all, as we have had also Rob McGregor recently make his way out onto the field. And well, I can tell you at the moment, whilst he's not there in the timing standings, that is because of the simple reason that we've not quite got his data loaded, but we are going to fix that issue very quickly as he gets ready to go. And as we do see here, McCain making his way on around on his initial laps here, we do have Rob McGregor charging on around the circuit as well. In fact, as we update our data, let's show you where Rob McGregor is, and there he is for HSR Racing, the number 117 driver, as he makes his way out to turn number 5 and up towards 6 and 7 as he rolls his way through the long right-hander here. So the question you may be asking at this point in time is, what can we expect in this qualifying session? Well, given how tight the circuit is and how limited in length the circuit is, this circuit being shorter than 2 miles compared to what you would typically see at Donington Park last time out, of course, which is 2.5 miles in length. What that means is we're a short lap and a lot of drivers in attendance. We're going to be expecting our drivers to typically have difficulty in terms of finding the space out on circuit. Now, putting that into mind, what that also means is that qualifying is going to be ever more critical, because if it's a narrow circuit by default and there's not too many overtaking opportunities, and really the key overtaking opportunities are turns 1, 4, 5, and that's it. What that means in actuality is that defending here can be quite an easy task compared to other circuits where you've got wide corners, as we see McGregor there putting the car into the wall. I think not too happy with the steering rack and deciding to go for the reset. So therefore, whoever qualifies well here, we can expect will set themselves up very nicely for race number 1, and it's all about mastering the art of defending into turn 1 on the opening lap, and also getting that good launch off the line, of course, with all of our races being standing starts. So qualifying is going to be a test here of our drivers' 1 lap pace, and it's going to be a critical determinant to the rest of the racing, but also in terms of can they find the space out of the circuit, because you can see, of course, with their 20 minutes being available and with an average lap time of under 1 1/3 minutes, that means our drivers are going to have in the region of about 10 to 15 laps, depending on how much fuel they take into the car and how many times they return to the pits to take on a new set of boots, or tyres as we like to refer to them more formally. And if our drivers can get in a good 10 laps, that gives you plenty of opportunities, but of course you've got to find the space in those 10 laps. And so when you may see some drivers who are out of position initially in qualifying, and they may jump their way up the order as time wears on, and vice versa. We may see some drivers who we would not normally affiliate with being up towards the top based on the opening rounds pace. They may just find that pace and absolutely get it to deliver on the clock today. But speaking of looking to deliver, as we do look to Gianni Peroni here from Verano Motorsport, making their way through turn number 4 and down towards 5 in the draft there of the 111 car, and the 111 car, of course, being piloted by none other than Chris Daines ahead. Verano Motorsport trying to work together as they make the way through turn number 5. And we say hello in the YouTube chat there to Stefan Vessels from CSA team. And Stefan, I do believe you're not quite able to join us tonight, and I see you saying that really bummed to miss the race tonight, and we're really missing you as well, and we hope you're back as soon as possibly can be, because at the end of the day we do love to see you fly around on circuit along with your colleagues from CSA, and it's not the same without you. But I hope you're doing all well, all the same, as we do see here our drivers from Rhino Motorsport getting ready to go on to a flying lap. But speaking of going on to a flying lap, we do wait for one of our drivers who's got a little bit more space ahead of them to head on around, so we get a true feel of the laps around the circuit. And I believe we do have none other than Matt Emmons making his way on down through the chicane right now, albeit he's going to be actually impeded by a little bit of traffic here, and instead I think it will be Paul Scott who we ride on board with as he gets ready to go. And in fact, he makes his way through the chicane, and as he comes on down, he'll have a bit more space to play with. Let's bring out that dashboard for you and take it around in the Audi RS3 as he goes on to a lap. Now charging out of the final corner here, flat out all the way down towards turn number 1. And as he gets ready to head towards the braking zone here, this will be where they're going the fastest in terms of top speed, and looks to his left for his brake marker, sees the 300 board, and then brakes for it just after the 300 board, given the fact that board is for the turn 1 of the full GP circuit. And as he comes through turn 1, bounce the throttle in 3rd gear before getting back on the pan, bring the car to the right hand side before lifting and dabbing the brake to roll into 2, and now charge up through turn number 3, completely flat out up the hill here, and now into the unsighted apex of turn number 4 as he makes his way into the right hander, lift off and a dab of the brake just to lift the rear of the car with the rearward brake bias. And as he makes his way through turn number 4, now down in the run towards turn number 5. But head into the braking zone here, looking to his right hand side and looking for that 200 metre marker, and brakes for it just about, goes a little bit deep. Then the car actually unsettles and he has to point the car away. A difficult lap there for Paul Scott, and he's going to have to go again, no question about it, as he jumps to the pits and not too happy with the tyres. But indeed we look to Matt Emmons, who makes his way on down and around through the chicane. In fact, we can ride on board with Matt Emmons now, as he does have a little bit more space in front of him as he comes through the final corner. And let's bring that dashboard up, and hopefully we'll get a full lap around here in the Audi RS3. Now, one thing to note, of course, we saw it at Donington Park, the Audi RS3, a car that does have a very interesting gearbox ratio setup compared to its peers. He gets a bit of a draft out of one of the HSR cars, and as he makes his way down into the braking zone here, on down as he goes in nice and late, trail brakes all the way and goes deep, creates a bit of a V-shaped apex as he now powers out and heads over to the right hand side for turn number 2. And as he rolls the car in here, notice he's having to stay in 4th where other drivers will drop to 3rd, and that's because the Audi wanting to go up the gears a lot more rapidly and aggressively compared to some of the other TCRs available, or touring car racing class cars. And as he comes through turn number 4, gets back on the power there, a little bit of understeer creeping, and you'll notice he had to hesitate to bring the throttle back in immediately as he now comes down towards turn number 5. Now onto the brakes here, braking at what is the not the 200 metre wall, 100 metre wall. That need to go Specsavers, it would seem. And as he comes through at the left hander of turn 5, now making his way into turn 6 and up to 7, takes a lot of curb and unsettles the car. And that's not what you want to do, is take a huge chunk of the turn 6 apex curve exit, can unsettle the car. You want to cut a good chunk of it, but not that much, as otherwise the car bounces. And as he makes his way through turn number 8, I think that was a near miss as he comes onto the brakes now for turns 9 and 10. You can see just how tight it is as he has to get the car to tuck in for the purposes of turn number 10. And out he comes as he goes up through the gearbox, and not a perfect lap of course for that moment coming through turn number 6, but a good indication of what a lap around the national layout of Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya is like as he crosses the line there. Well, for Emmons, he's got a lot more to do in this qualifying session, but still he's currently P18 overall, and what that means within class, he's currently P6 in the Prime class, and I think he'll be pleased with the fact he's inside the class's top 10 given the number of drivers, the sheer volume of drivers in the class. And in fact, I can confirm for you, ladies and gentlemen, we have 38 drivers in attendance currently out of our grid of just over 40 who have signed up, so we've almost got a full grid here, and it's absolutely stellar to see. But of course, we've ridden on board with 2 of our Audis, and how are our other cars faring? Well, we are expecting the Honda to be the strongest here tonight, and indeed visual pole sitter overall, and also in the Pro class right now, Mikey Doble paying dividend to that by only half a tenth, if that so far. And the reason is because the Honda is the handling car out of the 4 TCR class machines available. Of course, all these cars front engine, front wheel drive, but the difference being we've seen the Audi with its high gear ratios really does struggle at circuits which are focused more around the lower gears, so say 2nd, 3rd and 4th gear, because the Audi always wants to be at least 1 gear higher, if not 2 gears higher, given it is focused on getting into the upper gears, so full 5th and 6th, and delivering the power down. As Will Redford has gone provisional pole on a 17.727, and Chris Daines has jumped ahead of Mikey Doble as well. So Mikey Doble now a 10th off a pole, and Chris Daines only 2 thousandths, as we see Chris Daines in the Verano Motorsport Honda Civic Type R, 2 thousandths of the pole lap set by Will Redford. But the Honda goes so well here because firstly it's gearing, whereby the car is focused very much around the lower gears, so therefore having the ability to deliver that acceleration in 2nd, 3rd and 4th gear. And those are the gears we're going to be seeing used most here tonight, but also the Honda's got a very tight and sensitive front end, whereby it can make direction changes quite comfortably and roll into the corners. The Audi, by contrast, despite its gear ratios, does have quite a nice handling aspect to it in terms of that front end rotation, but also the Honda quite strong on the brakes. The only downside of the Honda, of course, outside of the 75 kilograms that's going to be in every Honda here tonight, is that this car can take a long time to get its tyres up to temperature, and we did see that at Donington where the Hondas were slow to begin with, but then very quickly found their way, really charged off into the distance in the race. So then you may ask, well, what about the Hyundais? Well, we see here Gianni Peroni, who makes his way up through the final corner, and as he comes on through to take another lap on the board, and Nigel Stock, in fact, has just improved on a personal best, which is moving up to P34, but meanwhile, Peroni goes up pole position on a 17.383, 300ths faster than what anybody else has been able to achieve so far, but immediately Redford and Doble strike back, and they get within 2.5 tenths of your Doble and 3.5 tenths of your Redford. You can see there it's all evolving right now, but Peroni finding a bit of slipstream from an Excite racing machine. I think that's Adam Delmont in front of it, and finding the toe at the most critical juncture as he makes his way through turn number 4. And the Hyundai Elantra has always been thematically the car to beat on a single lap. However, there are certain circuits where the Elantra is not as strong in terms of that categorization of being the one-lap pace car, and it's normally the circuits which are very handling focused where the Honda is able to demonstrate its handling prowess, and where the Elantra is not able to show its ability to be very fast in the straights. One of the fastest, if not the fastest, in the TCR class on a straight, on an extended straight, and well, right now we're seeing that the counter of that in the fact that our Elantra driver of Peroni is doing a fantastic job, indeed, at getting up there. But the downside of this car is, albeit it'll be mitigated with the fact that the Elantra is only running 25 kilograms of weight today as its success ballast, is that this car will rip into its tyres very quickly when pushed hard, as you see him making a little bit of a mistake then running wide, of course, in the draft of Adam Delmont, and in the end the Verano Motorsport driver flashing his lights. I think he wants to get a move on here with the fact that Delmont is in front, and Delmont minded his own business, to be fair, so I think Peroni may have to rethink where he places himself on circuit. But as he makes his way onto another lap, we will find an Elantra that's not necessarily being arguably impeded from the Elantra driver's perspective, and bringing on board a lap very shortly. In fact, Jason Morris making his way down into turn number 5, and as we see here, the number 888 driver making his way through turns 5, 6, 7 in quick succession. We'll ride on board with him very shortly to give you the perspective of what it's like to run the Elantra around here, and also you get to see that difference in the gear ratios of this car compared to the Audi, which the Audi, as we said earlier, not having the optimum gear ratios for this circuit, but that's what happens when you're running to a fixed setup where you're not allowed to change the gear ratios and you have to run with what you've got. But focus on what we've got here. Let's ride on board with Jason Morris as he takes us around for another lap of the Spanish circuit. He's making his way out to the final corner here and heading down towards turn at number 1, and you'll notice immediately coming out of the final corner in 3rd gear, building up through the gearbox as he heads on down towards the braking point, and we're in 5th gear at the moment, up to 6th, gets ready to go onto the anchors at the 300 board, and as he comes all the way down to 2nd gear, you can see immediately, in fact, down to 1st gear, decides to use much lower gears compared to our Audi drivers from earlier, and as he comes out, one nice placement for 2, bringing the car all the way to the right, using plenty of apex curve for 2, which helps lift the car and rotate it round. Of course, these TCRs heavy in the front means they're very stable when they rotate on these high curves, and as he comes through turn number 4, taking plenty of curve once again, sends the car a little bit wide as a result, has to compensate for some additional understeer as he now powers his way down towards turn number 5, but looks over to his right hand side and braking out the 100 board, coming all the way down to the 1st gear, and as he lets the car come through the apex, gets back on the power and powers through turn 6 and 7. And now note here how as he comes on through, takes a bit of the turn 6 apex curve, keeps it nice and tight to turn 7, taking a V shape. A bit too much apex there, taking one of the sleeping policemen as he now makes his way into turn number 8 and getting very close once again to the raised curve, and then not collecting it, now breaking into turn 9. Very tricky here as he tries to straight line between the 2 apex curves, does so admirably, and as he comes through the final corner of turn number 11, getting right up on the curving once again, but a bit greedy with that curve, and that's going to send the car away. You can actually hear there He had to lift off slightly as he came on through, and it's not going to be the lap that Morris wanted as he heads on around for another lap. And indeed, that I think she's using a bit too much curb, but you can see what our drivers are trying to go for. They're trying to exploit those curbs to give them extra rotation, but take too much, the car ends up over-rotating. Take too little, however, and you find yourself losing a bit of speed over the course of each lap. But as he makes his way on around, we also need to talk a little bit about the Veloster. And well, speaking of the Veloster, here is John Higgins Jr. making his way through the final corner and heading on down towards turn number 1. And the Veloster, much like what we said about it at Donington Park, a jack of all trades, master of none machine within the TCR class. And we can expect it to go quite well here today as John Higgins Jr. moves up to P13 on a 1:18.204. And as he comes down to the braking zone for turn number 1, the thing about the Veloster is it will go well here. We're not expecting it to be the strongest on a single lap, but it will definitely go well as it goes deeper and deeper into the race. But all of our Veloster drivers will be carrying an extra 50 kilograms of weight in the car, and that may just really start to nip into the tyres of the Veloster as he makes his way into turn number 4. But it's good to see Higgins Jr. from HSR out on circuit, and indeed, like son, like father, instead of like father, like son. And let's take a look at the father, and that is John Higgins Sr. here as he makes his way down towards turn number 5. And you can see on the time and how they're in 2 separate classes, with Junior being in the Pro class, meanwhile Senior being in the Pro class, but also we now have the ability to distinguish them on that time and tout with their suffix initials of Junior and Senior as well. But as you can see, Senior making his way through turn 7 at the moment, looking very tight to the apex there, and indeed this Veloster looking very compact in the driving style, and that's what we typically see from HSR as well. When they're on qualifying laps, very smooth driving. It doesn't always give them pole position, but it does place them very well within their respective classes. And Higgins Senior right now in particular currently running P4 in class, and that's where he wants to be, and only what is half a tenth of a Mark Sykes, and Mark Sykes in the Honda Civic. And of course, remember, we are expecting the Hondas here to do very well in qualifying, but in the race they're expected to struggle by comparison. And as for our Veloster drives, we're expecting the last 2 to 3 laps to be quite nasty on the front tyres, given that 50 kilograms weight, but nothing compared to how the Honda drives will fare. Meanwhile, the Elantras should be able to run most of their typical pace, albeit they will drop off quite significantly given the high tyre degradation on the Elantra's front tyres, and then the Audis will feel very comfortable all the way through the race, and that may give them the opportunity to creep into the proceedings as we go deeper and deeper into each race. The likes of Gavin Gardner, for example, currently P17, and he is our highest placed Audi driver, and of course Gavin Gardner no slouch when it comes to pushing the Audi to its limits. But that just goes to show the RS3 not suited for this circuit, given how far down the order he is, with the majority of our top 10 being Honda Civic Type R's, but we have got quite a few Elantras creeping in there, and that may also be, as we heard briefly from Nick Clibbins, whereby he was saying about the 75 kilograms in the Honda really sapping away the straight line acceleration uphill. So coming through turns 2 through to 4, our drivers are going to be experiencing that, and also in the brief inclination going from turn 5 up to 7, they'll also have a slight deficit in that straight line acceleration, but there's no real overtaking opportunities unless you get an absolute blistering run out of turn number 5 by default, or the driver in front of you makes an absolute ham sandwich, as we like to say, coming out of turn at number 5. But as he makes his way through turn number 1 here, going a bit deep once again, Gardner, I think, trying to get himself set up and trying to find that optimum braking point for turn number 1, trying to go as late as possible but carry the speed. And as he comes on through right now, definitely not finding it that time around. But as he makes his way up towards turn number 4, we do look to Joseph Doble here, one of many members of the Doble family racing in this series. We have Mikey, or Michael Doble, we also have Joseph Doble, and I think we also do have one other member of the Doble family racing tonight, and that is Isaac Doble. But we're focusing here on the midfield driver of the trio, with Mikey Doble towards the very front. In fact, he is currently provisional pole sitter, and meanwhile Joseph Doble currently sat in P20 overall, but for him P5 in class. He's demoted to P21, P6 in the Pro-Am class, with Ian Manners jumping up into that P5 position. With less than 2 minutes left to go, our drivers now only really have 1 or 2 laps left available to them, depending on where they are on circuit. Whether they're out on circuit or not, of course, that is a big question as well. And as they come charging on through at this point in time, time is wearing down for our drivers, and indeed not long to go before this grid will be set for race number 1. And speaking of current pole sitters, well, we have seen it go back and forth between Gianni Perrone and Mikey Doble, and also for a brief time Chris Daines and Will Redford. And right now it is Perrone who is currently a provisional pole sitter overall and in the Pro class by only 15 thousandths over Mikey Doble. As meanwhile in the Pro class, it's Alan McCain who has put in a stellar lap to take Pro provisional pole with a minute to go of what is a 1:17.96, and he has an advantage right now over what is there, a tenth. A tenth doesn't sound like much, but on a short circuit like this, a tenth it's a matter of 3 or 4 places, and indeed overall it will be for McCain right now. If he lost a tenth compared to a good number of his peers, he might find himself immediately outside of the top 10. But as he comes roaring on through at turn 2 and up towards 3, he's almost set and charging on through as he comes on up the hill. And also we do look to Bram G. Clays here, who one of our stellar standouts here at Donington Park, not quite having the qualifying session he's wanted here today, but of course the Audi RS3 being that car that's not favourable to this circuit. We're expecting it to perk up more under race conditions. He makes his way through turn number 4, but as he comes on down, the clock's about to strike 20 minutes, and now those final qualifying laps are going to be coming in as we look to the start-finish line here, and you can see checker flag now. Jamie Dory jumps up to P3 overall ahead of Nick Clements on a 1:17.399. But we're focusing here on Martin Shirley, who's in the last batch to go round on their qualifying laps here, leaving it to literally the last seconds where the circuit will be rubbered in as much as possible. But of course, track temperature is going to be high, and could that see some excess tyre degradation, or the car starts to slip off circuit as he makes his way into turn number 4. Normally the circuit will be its grippiest right now as he comes on through the right-hander, but not carrying the speed he wanted, and didn't go as wide as we see a driver parked up there. And in fact, Shirley backing off and parking the car up as he lets everybody on go on through. But we do have some drivers still making the way on around, and will Andrew Pike coming to his final qualifying lap, currently P17 overall, crossing the line. And what's it going to be for Pike as he comes to the line? It's a 1:18.621, not an improvement compared to his 1:18.18. He will stay P17 overall. Kieran Sharp, one of our next drivers to come through as the second of the Sim Racing Collective drivers, but higher compared to his teammate. And as he comes around, can he improve from P13? I think it's going to be quite the task as he comes to the line. And no, he does not. In fact, he does improve there, even though we had all yellow sectors listed, but he's found a way to improve. That's a 1:18.002, so a bit of a glitch in our timing screens there, but Kieran Sharp gaining one more place. As meanwhile, we've also had Gavin Garner come across the line. Has he improved as he comes to the line? Currently P19. And, well, I don't think he's improved. No, he has not. And I think that's everybody said and done as our drivers get ready to make their way back into the pit lane. And, well, it is Gianni Perrone who has taken overall pole position and pro pole. Meanwhile, Alan McCain has taken pro and pole position as our drivers now get ready to make their way to the grid for race number 1. But as they do, we do say hello to Mark Sykes there in the Facebook chat. And Mark Sykes indeed on this grid as well, currently P21 overall, and what is the equivalent in the Prime class of P6 in class as he gets ready to go racing. And Mark, nice qualifying session from yourself, and we do look forward to seeing how you get on in race number 1. Speaking of race 1, here's the grid. So they line up as follows for race number 1 of round 2 of the NXTCC Season 2. It is Gianni Perrone and Mikey Doble on the front row. Perrone taking overall and pro pole position with Jamie Dory and Nick Clemens on row number 2. They're followed up by Chris Daines and Will Redford on row number 3, with John Higgins Jr. and Michael Lees on row 4. Michael Lees putting in a superb qualifying session to be P8, given his promotion to the class as of this round. We then have on row number 5 Adam Delmont and prime pole sitter of Alan McCain, and they are followed up there by Martin Shirley and Kieran Sharp on row at number 6. We then have behind them Reese Watt, good qualifying session with the JW Motorsport driver to do well to get inside the top 15, with Adam Mullally alongside on row number 7, and then it's Sam Smith and Joseph Doble on row at number 8. Andrew Pike and John Higgins Sr. on row number 9, followed up completing the top 20 by Gavin Garner and Elwyn Sykes. Mark Sykes just outside the top 20 starts P21, joined by Jason Morris on the 11th row, with Ian Maz and Bram G. Clays on row 12, and on row number 13 we have Rob McGregor and Matthew Addy, with Lee Horn and Matt Emmons at P27, P28, both having difficult qualifying sessions. Philip Bruberg and Trev Anderson line up P29, P30, with Isaac Doble and Paul Scott on the 16th row. Now on the 17th row, P33 Nigel Stott with Tom Delaney alongside, with Davide Farber and Jonathan Collins on row number 18. And then our final row, it will be Daniel Weston and Luke Jones who start P37 and P38 together, and that is how our drivers will line up for the grid for race number 1. But as they get ready to go racing here, of course, we look to our pole sitter, and, well, he's had an absolutely stellar qualifying session and taken his first pole position of the season with a flyer. But now the question will be, can he make it work when he goes racing under race conditions for the first time tonight? Well, let's wait and see at the Spanish circuit. But further down the order, we also do see all of our drivers line up here, an absolutely packed grid. And, well, we're only waiting for 1 or 2 drivers to get themselves set, but I think most of our drivers are there. And indeed, it's now the lights out and away we go process. We wait the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. and it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 here at Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. And immediately Mikey Doble and Jamie Dory getting an absolutely flying start as they make their way down towards turn number 1. It's going to be a 6-way battle into the opening hairpin as they come onto the brakes. We can see that on the right of the pitch, I believe that is one of the runner motorsport drivers going very deep. That was Peroni going very deep as all our drivers come roaring on through. And in fact, we look to the blimp camera here a little bit further back. Everybody right now scrambling side by side, coming up through turn 2 into 3. And well, battles left, right and centre. Some have gone a bit deep. We've got a car off there. That's Matthew Addy going to the gravel. But as they come on through turn number 4, we look back up to the front of the field and they come charging on down in towards their hairpin. And Chris Daines here on the offensive versus Jamie Doran to brake. And oh, goodness me, loses it on cold brakes. They're trying to do the switchback. And meanwhile, Gianni Peroni coming in very hot, but just about getting it stopped in time versus John Higgins Jr. as they make the way through turn 6 into 7. I think we saw, oh, goodness me, there's more contact there. Alan McCain turned around, the Pro-Am leader being made to go to the gravel at turn number 7, and he's going to be absolutely frustrated with that. There's no question about it as he brings himself back onto the circuit. But that means we have a new Pro-Am winner, win opportunity driver here, we should say, a leader, I mean, as he makes his way through turns 9 and 10, and that is Reese Watt as he comes on through and looks up the inside here of Adam Manali into the final corner at the end of lap number 1. We have had one lap struck off of the schedule for race number 1. I believe that may be the case at all 3 races tonight, but we'll give you an update on that a little bit later. But as they come charge on down towards turn number 1, the field is as follows. Mikey Doble leads as he comes through turn number 1 on lap number 2 ahead of Will Redford P2, Adam Delman P3, holding up Michael Lees behind him P4, Jamie Dory P5, followed by John Higgins Jr. P6, then it's Kieran Sharp P7, Sam Smith P8, Gianni Peroni P9, who leads the chasing pack here after starting on pole with a difficult opening lap. And then Reese Watt, your prime leader, currently going up the inside here and looking for the move immediately. And I don't know what Reese Watt's had for breakfast, but whatever he's had, it's fired him up, because look at the moves he's going for as he makes his way down towards turn number 5. The only thing he's got to be careful of is the fact that right now he's going to be putting excess wear in the tyres, and if he pushes them too hard early on, he may find himself coming unstuck a little bit later. Meanwhile, a bit further back here, you can see John Higgins Sr. battling with what is there, Andrew Pike, as Andrew Pike makes the move stick, and we bring the battle box up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen so you can keep track of who's fighting who. As they make the way on around here and come charging on down right now, we can definitely see our drivers pressing on all the same as they make the way down into the chicane. And it's contact there from Chris Daines on the inside of Higgins Sr. And I think Chris Daines had a bit of a difficult start too today. I don't think there was any malice meant in it, but going for the move there, I think it was always going to shut on him as they make the way through turn number 11. You can see there Daines immediately backing off to give the place back, wary of what happened, I think, accepting that some of the fault may have laid with him. But as they make the way on down, there's a bit more contact there. As you can see, Jason Morris battling with Chris Daines, and Daines not too pleased about that as Morris tries to look for the move on what was Higgins Sr., but in the process making contact with the Rhino Motorsport driver as they come on down, and Daines coming back up the inside as they now make the way out of turn number 1. Further back, meanwhile, we can see Joseph Doble battling with side by side with Mark Sykes, and there we have Matt Emmons who's trying to pick his way on past Ian Manners, but Manners in the end surviving and staying ahead as they make the way up towards turn number 4 in the battle for P21. Meanwhile, Trevor Anderson trying to go around the outside here of Isaac Doble, the NDA Honda Racing driver under pressure, and the JW Motorsport driver Anderson making a superb move around the outside of turn 4. And of course, with the tyres he's got on the run, he could go for it as he goes hot on the brakes versus Matt Evans into 5. Up the inside there, I think he's going to make it count as they come on through and make the way out to turn number 5 through 6 and 7. But then he can't quite get it for the switchback here, or will he? As you can see there, Evans being compressed in by Mark Sykes, so has to back off for Manners, but Anderson has to give him the space. Now Isaac Doble finds himself on the inside as they come on down, but Doble backing out there as meanwhile coming in a little bit hot on the inside in the rear of the picture was Brown G. Clays, who went in hot versus Matthew Addy, 2 drivers who've had a very difficult start to their race, both been involved in major incidents. Oh goodness me, and Clays up on the curb there at turn number 10, and that is going to hurt the front right suspension, there's no question about it, as they come through turn number 11 to go on to another lap. But as they charge their way down towards turn number 1, heading in towards the braking zone here, we do look a little bit further back up the order, and in particular we look to our driver who's currently running in P9, and he's your Pro-Am leader at the moment, and that's JW Motorsports Reese Watt in the 32 Honda. who is absolutely having the race of the day so far as he makes his way through turn number 4. And to be fair, he's got a lot of pros behind who are salivating at the prospect of picking up the place off of him, but they're going to have to go hard to chase him down. But meanwhile, speaking of a prime who's on a flyer, we look to a pro driver who's in a little bit of difficulty, and that is Gavin Gardner right now, who finds himself quite a way off of the back of Joseph Doble, but in return he's safe from Ian Manners at the moment as the Ryland Motorsport driver tries to pick his way up through the field a little bit more and pick up a few more places. But as soon as we look away from the battle up front, we look back to it, and Sam Smith up the inside of John Higgins Jr. for P7, and the iRacing Esports driver then making the move into turn number 8. As you see in front, Michael Lease has had a great start to his run in the Pro Class so far, holding on to P6, but Sam Smith has got the pressure of John Higgins Jr. as they make the way on down the start-finish straight to the end of lap number 4. But as they go on to the 5th lap, heading down towards turn number 1, will we see a potential move? I don't think so from Higgins Jr. I think he's going to protect the tyres instead and wait for a little bit later on. Although I say they make contact as they come into the corner. I think Lease is also going to be taken with a tap to the rear of the car, and Michael Lease there flashing the lights. Well, he's not going to be too happy about that, but he survived it despite it all. But that was very near the curtains for the pair of them as they made their way through the corner. I think Lease just a passenger in what's going on behind, but there, John Higgins Jr. just getting a little bit deep on the brakes, the car getting unsettled, tapping the rear of what was Smith. And then as a result, that's what led to the further contact with Lease, and now Sam Smith I think will be wary of what's coming up behind him. As they make their way down to turn 5 once more here, they seem to settle down for a brief moment, and we look outside of the top 10 all the way back to Matthew Addy in P29 here, who as we ride on board with the Next Gen Racing yellow driver, still trying to find his way up the orders. He looks up the inside, there's contact with the drivers, and he comes in absolutely blazing hot, and I think Matthew Addy there in a little bit of a moment, may have been a bit of red mist descending over as he looked up the inside. I think you could see what he's trying to do, but it didn't quite work out, and he's dropped back to P34, and we take a look back at exactly what happened. Coming in hot on the brakes here, looking for the move on what was his rival in the iRacing Esports car, then the 212 of Alan McCain. Looked up the inside and just slightly misjudged it, and in the end McCain, of course, with that tap being made to go further forward, and Alan McCain making contact with Davide Favo, and that is how it all played out, as the CSA Team 3 driver from South Africa was just in that position at the wrong time and wrong place. But as we return to the live pictures now, Matthew Addy definitely not having the race to remember in race number 1 here at Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya as he brings himself back up to speed. Meanwhile, further back, of course, Nick Clibbins here, and well, we were expecting him to have a happy start given the fact he qualified well, but he's had another difficult race so far as he runs around here in P33, P17 in the Pro Class, battling with Rob McGregor, another pro who finds himself out of position as well. Both drivers losing places, but Nick Clibbins in particular losing 29 places overall since the start of the race, and goodness me, what a start it was, as now he looks to try and build himself up a few more places, because of course the race 2 grid will be set based on the finishing places of race number 1, but there's still plenty of points in it, with all 3 races being weighted equally in terms of points available to drivers. But as they make the way on through, coming through turn number 5 and up towards 6, we look here from Nick Clemens to race leader Mikey Doble, who's under pressure right now from teammate Will Redford, and I wonder if a little bit of team rivalry is going to come on here. As you can see, Mikey Doble going defensive as they come down into turn number 1 for the battle for the pro and the overall lead, and as they come on to the brakes, well, Redford getting very close there as they come on out, and Redford staying so close to the back of Doble, literally it's about to touch the rear of the car and almost taking our camera out as a result. But as they make their way through turns 2 and 3 and heading up towards 4, you can see just how Redford trying to keep that pressure on, but of course both drivers pressuring one another here into potential mistakes and pushing harder. They will take that front tyre life down, and can Adam Delmont behind, who sits 1.5 seconds behind, find a way to get into this fight and make it a 3-way fight for the win in the Hondas as they make the way down towards turn number 5 once again. Well, Redford's going to look around the outside here. Doble's going to defend, but Redford's going to carry the momentum. Now, will he have the inside for 7? That'll be the challenge here. I think Redford's going to have the inside line. Doble's going to try and hold all the speed he can, tries to compress Redford as much as possible to the apex to make sure he can't power off the corner, but as they come down, Redford says, no, I'm here to stay, but Doble as well says, well, I'm going to do it too, and as they come down too wide into turn 9, Doble gets ahead there as Redford looks to turn in, but all we can see is the side panel of Doble as they make contact coming out of 10. Through 11, they go side by side through turn number 11, and Adam Delmont is closing up to the pair now very rapidly indeed, so we will have a 3-way fight for the win here as we go into the second half of the race, as they come across the timeline onto lap number 8, and as they come charging down towards turn number 1, this time you can see Delmont literally looking left, right and centre, Doble meanwhile defending here as they make the way on in under the brakes, but as they come through, there's a bit of contact there between Delmont and Doble as they make the way in towards turn number 2, and Delmont there I think trying to give him a little bit of a love tap to say don't forget about me, I'm in this fight as well. But meanwhile we look from our race leaders to a battle a little bit further down and looking to a P20 here. And it's Ian Manners right now who's looking to hold off Mark Sykes behind, and these two have been together for a good portion of this race so far, been relatively inseparable as they make the way on through and coming through turn 2 and 3 right now. Further back we are hearing that Matthew Addy has found his way past Rob McGregor as he moves up to P31 overall. Of course a change of overall position but not class position, but as they make the way through turn number 4 and head down towards 5 here, things are settling down a little bit right now in the hunt for the rear end of the top 20, but Gavin Gardner meanwhile under a bit of pressure here from Joseph Doble as they make the way into the braking zone for turn number 5, and the Verano Motorsport driver here I think now starting to count on the Honda's front tyres wearing away, with that 75 kilograms making itself more and more known to the car as we go deeper and deeper into this race. But as they make the way through turn 7 and down towards 8, we can't really see the effects of the additional weight coming in right now. We will start to see it, I would presume, around, as we said earlier, about laps 12 and 13. That's where the Hondas will really start to feel the pinch of the 75 kilograms as they make the way on down and around here and they press on. But meanwhile we look from just inside the top 20 to batting for P6. Well, here is Michael Lees in the Excite Racing Machine under pressure from John Higgins Jr. as behind there we can see Gianni Perrone looking for the move up the inside of Sam Smith. Can't quite find it at the moment as all 4 drivers here go line astern through turns 2 and 3, and behind them, to be fair, they have Shirley, McNally, Watt and Pike all in the hunt, and it looks though this could develop into an 8-way battle for P6 if they stay this close to the remainder. And with Lees they're going a bit deep, got to be careful because doesn't want to run to that gravel, but as they come charge on down we look to the driver at the back of this quartet, and that is the Verano Motorsport driver of Perrone as he makes his way under braking into turn number 5, and so close there as he tries to get closer to the rear of Smith to put the pressure on and try and look for a move, not out of 5 but coming into 7, can't quite find it at the moment, and Higgins Jr. not comfortable I think on the run through 5 and 7. You can see that the Veloster driver just seemingly not able to carry the momentum up the hill and then into the long right hander. Meanwhile Smith and Perrone behind looking quite comfortable on the transition, and as they come through the chicane here now they're all bunching together once again. It's interesting to see Lee struggling a little bit through the chicane compared to his peers, but of course we've been one wide through that chicane into turn 11, not affected as much. They make the way down the start finish straight and we ride on board here with the Hyundai Elantra driver. As they make their way down towards turn number 1, of course, in the draft, onto the brakes. He's going to look very, very late under brake, and he's going to go for it, however, and onwards he goes into turn 1. Can he make it work as Lees goes deep, and Higgins Jr. comes on through. Perrone side by side here with Smith as they come through turn number 2, but he's got to give the space, but Smith comes off the curb, makes contact with the side of Perrone with his touring car, its doors out, its elbows out, and as they make the way into turn number 4, the Verano Motorsport driver of Perrone in the 35 has found its way up to P8. Can he make another place as they come roaring on down towards turn number 5? We went for it late once and he made it work. Will he gamble twice? He's going to look for here and he's going to go in on the brakes, and Lees leaves the door open. He tries to turn in, but the damage is done, and Perrone makes it 2 moves and makes 2 places successfully as he comes through turn number 7. I think Lees did not expect that to happen, and look at Michael Lees struggling as he comes through turn. I think the weight's starting to be felt on that Veloster as he makes his way down into turn number 8. Smith looks up the inside and Lees goes deep again. Is there a problem with the car? The tyres do not seem to want to grip anymore, and he's falling right back into the medley as he goes over the curb and then lets McNally on through. Adam McNally moves up a position, but they're all clustered together as they come down through turn number 11, and this is where the success ballast will really start to hurt. When a driver hits the wall on those front tyres, it will be clear as day, and Lees is struggling right now as he looks to try and hold on to some place inside the top 10, but he's fallen to P11 and he's got to fight back. He looks up the inside of McNally, but his 2 teammates, and they make contact, they send each other wide, and look at this, Pike comes on through as he makes the move, and now Reese Watt looks at this and thinks, well, can I also get involved please, as the prime leader right now. He's got to be careful because he's only got 1.2 seconds to John Higgins Sr. behind, and Higgins Sr. is not going to waste an opportunity. If you give him a chance to take the lead in the class, he will go for it hands down. As you can see, Higgins Sr. right now hugging the rear of Chris Daines here. He's got to pick his way past the Verano Motorsport Pro driver before he can go a hunting after Reese Watt. But of course, one thing we do know about Daines is there's contact between the 2 of them, and Daines is turned towards the wall, and Higgins Senior there. Well, he's had to press on, of course, can't park it on the circuit, but Chris Daines, I think, coming over there. Well, did he squeeze Higgins Senior a bit too much or not? We can't tell really from that angle. Of course, the angle made it look like Daines came over too far, but that's one for the stewards to investigate post-race if it's reported. But meanwhile, now Lee Horn will be hugging the rear of Higgins Senior and looking for the move for P2 in the Prime class. There's no doubt about that as they make the way through turns 9 and 10 and in towards 11. But as they come down the hill and in towards turn 11 once again, we look a bit further back here to Isaac Doble, who looking to make the move versus Thomas Delaney as they come down through 11. But right now, Delaney on his debut in this season today, looking to hold on there as he makes his way for the right-hander and the SVP of Marva Loster as he comes charging down towards turn 1. But you can see Isaac Doble hugging the rear of Delaney. In fact, Delaney, they're slowing down. I wonder if there's a slowdown that's been applied due to track limits for Delaney, and it would seem that way, as meanwhile Elwin Sykes here battling side by side with Matthew Addy, the Audi RS3 driver on the left of your picture. That's Sykes and Addy on the right of your picture as they come under braking, and the CS18-3 driver, well, he may not be competing for a top 10 in the Prime class. He's battling for P14 class right now, but he's going to go for it and enjoy it because, of course, he's taking on the leader of the championship going into tonight, and that's all great experience for him. And, of course, if he can keep Addy behind, he'll definitely put that as a feather in his cap with regards to taking on one of the best in class. But as he makes his way for the right-hander, Addy goes around the outside here, and Sykes backing off, I think, with the two wide and not quite able to carry the speed as much as he would like. As you can see, Paul Scott looking up the inside here. I think Paul Scott's going to go over the move, but Elwin Sykes goes a little bit later on the brakes in the battle into the left-hander at turn number 5, and well, you can see Paul Scott not able to make the move happen this time around. But as they come charging on through turn 6 and 7, we look up to the very front of the field here with limited laps to go, and well, right now Will Redford, your leader for NDA Honda Racing, and these two drivers of Will Redford and Mikey Doble exchanging the lead constantly over the last few laps, and behind Adam Delman under pressure from the third NDA Honda Racing driver inside the top 5, and that is Jamie Dory, who we haven't really talked about. And Jamie Dory, of course, having that disastrous end to his round 1 at Donington Park, where he fell down the standings in rapid order in race number 3, and that was due to him not feeling too well in the car. But he's come back tonight fully fit, or as close as possible to fully fit, and really trying to bounce back after a difficult end to his proceedings in the United Kingdom. And as he makes his way around right now at the Catalonian circuit here, you'd have to say he's a very much revived NDA Honda Racing driver, in the fact he's going on the offensive here for a podium overall and in class. But he can't quite find the move at the moment versus Delman. Of course, these two great friends off circuit, but on circuit also great rivals as they make the way down into the chicane. And as he comes through the left into right here right now, we can see that Dory is staying close, but can he find the move? Not immediately here, and I think he's going to have to wait, and it's going to be a war of attrition here, given now our Honda drivers will really start to feel the pinch, and their lap times are gradually starting to fall away. Delman and Dory on that last lap, Delman at 18.05, Dory at 17.88, Redford and Doble 17.7, 17.6. Meanwhile, further back, we are starting to see some lap times stabilise with regards to, say, Gianni Baroni, who's currently on 17.9. He is running the leader's pace right now, albeit he is 10 seconds off of the lead, and that goes to show you how the success ballast is starting to creep in. But I can tell you something else that's creeping in very rapid fashion here. Joseph Doble having to defend hard, as you can see behind. He's got the pressure from Gavin Garnett on his inside. He's got the pressure from Morris. Now what would he do as he turns in? He goes a bit late on the brakes in order to stop compressing Morris, but Morris there on the inside. I think Morris backed out, wondering what was going to happen, and Doble defends it, but I'm not sure if Morris is going to be too pleased. I think he was a bit worried that his nose would be taken off there, but in the compression with all three drivers coming in under braking, well, somebody had to give way in the end, and it was Morris who gave way, and Garner behind, and Gavin Garner keeping that pressure on as they make their way down towards turn number 5. As they come charge on down here towards the hairpin, you can see Ian Manners having to work versus Trevor Anderson as they head onto the brakes and trying to hold on here for 52 Zilla with Chris Racing as they make the way through the left-hander. Chris Daines looks up the inside there of Anderson. I think Anderson leaving the door open. They're seeing the pro driver coming on through, and he's not battling for class position with Daines. He's battling for position versus Manners as they make the way on around penultimate lap time. 15 laps complete by our leaders already, and indeed now we're coming to the crunch point of the race where everyone will be going for gold in terms of getting one or two more places. You can see Manners goes deep and he defends versus Daines coming through the chicane. There's only really one line for the chicane. If you try to go inside to outside, you've got to really get the run out of turn number 9. And so as you find yourself caught up and having to slow down in the run down towards 11, but looking from these guys right now as they make the way, we'll continue to stay with them in the run down towards turn number 1. Daines on the inside there and managed, but he's got Anderson on his outside now, and they're going to go 3 wide if Daines thinks about it. No, he decides not to. He lets Anderson try and go deep and around, and in return what Daines is going to do is going to hug the back of Manners to make sure he stays safe as Anderson backs out there in the run to turn number 2. But meanwhile we look to our race leaders, and we can see here Mikey Doble right now back ahead of Will Redford and holding on this penultimate lap. But of course it all comes down to the final lap and the checker flag that awaits them when they come around one more time. And as they make the way under the braking zone here into turn number 9, Doble definitely looking in control with a 6/10 advantage. That can very quickly close up, of course, subject to what happens. But meanwhile, speaking of things happening right now, we look to Jason Morris battling side by side here with Gavin Gardner, and it's for overall position, not class position. But Morris going for it here as he digs in versus Gardner. Of course, it will place him better on the grid if he beats Gardner. But as they make the way into the right hander for turn at number 8, takes a bit too much curve, and Gavin Gardner comes round the outside. A brave move from the Audi driver, but gets it done and puts the pressure on Morris, and Morris making a minor but critical error. But meanwhile, as they make the way onto the final lap, we look back to our leaders who are already on that lap, making their way up towards turn number 4, and as they come charging up the hill, Doble leads ahead of Will Redford here as they make the way through turn number 4, and further behind Jamie Dory, still right on the heels of Adam Delmont as they head down towards turn number 5. Now Delmont's not going to come off that inside line, he's going to pin himself to that inside line, and you can understand why as Dory tries to go around the outside under brake, and he turns in there. Delmont makes the corner as well, and in the end Delmont makes sure to give him the elbow out there as they make the way through 6 and 7. He takes a lot of curve, but he's just kept the car pointing in the straight line, and as they make the way through turn at number 7 up towards 8, we look back to leaders who come through turn 8 and down towards the chicane. Doble still ahead of Redford. I don't think Redford's got anything in the tank now, unless Doble makes an error coming into the final corner, but there's anything we can count on. He doesn't make errors when it matters most, and as he comes through the final corner, the checker flag awaits him, and he's going to carry on from where he finished in round number 1 by making it 4 wins on the bounce. Mikey Doble is your winner overall and in the pro class ahead of Will Redford in P2, and then it will be Adam Delmont P3 ahead of Jamie Dory P4, and then Kieran Sharp P5 ahead of Johnny Perrone, John Higgins Jr. P7, Sam Smith P8, and it will be Martin Shelley P9, Andrew Pike P10, Adam and A P11, but Reese Watt crosses the line, your pro and winner here in race number 1 for JW Motorsport. A superb drive from Watt, no question about it. As he comes down to turn number 1 here, he will be absolutely full of joy after we had the chance, of course, to speak to him, and he said he thought he had the pace, and he's got it definitely. John Higgins Sr. P13 ahead of Michael Lees P14, and it'll be Lee Horn at P15 ahead of Joseph Doble P16, Gavin Garner P17, then Chris Daines P18. The Verano Motorsport pair having a difficult race number 1, but still plenty to play for in the remaining 2 races of tonight. Trevor Anderson P19, and it'll be Jason Morris P20 ahead of Ian Manners P21, Mark Sykes P22, Matt Evans P23, and then we can see Isaac Doble P24 in a race filled with battling for Isaac Doble, and I think he definitely enjoyed that. Nick Clibbins at P25 ahead of Alan McCain P26, and then Tom Delaney at P27, at Matthew Addy P28 in a race not to be remembered for the Next Gen Racing yellow driver. Davide Favo P29 ahead of Paul Scott in the battle of the Audis, and then it was Elwin Sykes P31 who we can see here ahead of what was Jonathan Collins at P32, and then Philip Bruberg finishing P33, and the last of our drivers to finish on the lead lap, Philip Bruberg, as he came to the line for Bright Esports. But superb racing from all of our drivers from start to finish, very tight up and down the field. And well, let's take you through those race results. They've just come on in, and here they are, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, these results provisional, subject to any post-round stewarding inquiries. But Sam, well, for goodness me, that is the practice results. My apologies there, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of glitch on our screen. But there are the race results for race number 1 overall. And Mikey Doble taking the win in the end by 4 tenths over Will Redford. The 2 NDA Honda racing drivers battling firm but fair all the way and making it a 1-2 lockout. Adam Delmont, the other driver on the podium, but not from Excite Racing, bringing home P3 there overall and in class. A superb drive from him to hold off Jamie Dory, who finished P4. The Sim Racing Collector's Kieran Sharp there in a great start to his day, P5 ahead of Gianni Perrone from Verano Motorsport, who really did well to recover after a difficult start, P6 for him. John Higgins Jr. P7, Sam Smith P8, Martin Shirley P9, Andrew Pike P10, completing the top 10. Best of the rest there, P11 overall, Adam McNally for Excite Racing, but a huge mention there to Reece Watt, John Higgins Sr. and Lee Horn, your AM podium finishers, P12, P13 and P15 respectively, with Reece Watt getting the ultimate mention, of course, for bringing home his maiden win in the Pro-Am class. But as we come now on to the individual classification standings here, starting with our pros, we can see Mikey Doble bringing home the win, ahead of Will Redford and Adam Delmont to make your pro podium. Jamie Dory P4, Kieran Sharp P5, that top 9, well, in fact that top 10, the same as we saw in the overall standings, with Sharp bringing home that top 5, and Gianni Peroni, John Higgins Jr., Sam Smith, Martin Shirley, and Andrew Pike completing the top 10. Adam McNally P11, Michael Lees P12, but I think he will feel as though if it were not for the car falling away with regards to the front tyre wear towards the end of race number 1, he could have been inside the top 10, so keep your eyes on him in race number 2. Then Gavin Garner P13, Chris Daines P14, Nick Clemens P15, and then our 2 retirees of Robert McGregor as he's known in full for HSR, and Simtech Racing's Bram G. Clays. Then coming on to the AM classification, not the AM classification, the Pro-Am classification, we can see Reece Watt there confirmed the winner of race number 1 by 2.2 seconds over John Higgins Sr., who came close at points, but Reece Watt found a way to step his game up each and every time, and then Lee Horn completing the Pro-Am podium ahead of Joseph Doble and Trevor Anderson to take the top 5. Jason Morris P6, and a big mention to Jason Morris there. Difficult start to his race, but he found a way to creep back into the top 10, and after that did not fall away at all and pressed on, gaining 2 places over the course of the race. Ian Manners P7, and I think we've got to expect more from Ian Manners in races 2 and 3. I think we only saw a limited amount of his potential here, and I think the early race instance held him back to a degree. Matt Emmons P9 in a great race, just behind Mark Sykes in P8, and then Isaac Doble completing the top 10. Alan McCain, best of the rest of the primes in P11. And then Tom Delaney, Matthew Addy, Davide Farvo, Paul Scott, Elwin Sykes, Jonathan Collins and Philip Bruberg to make the top 18. And we're still going, of course, then with Nigel Stott finishing a lap down at P19. Daniel Weston retiring early, P20. And the same for Luke Jones there, unable to turn a full lap due to technical issues for the JW Motorsport driver. But those are your finishing positions for race number 1. Of course, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we get ourselves set very shortly for race number 2. And, well, we will be back in approximately what will be 5 minutes' time for the build-up to race number 2. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race number 2 on tonight's schedule. Running a couple minutes behind our intended schedule, but of course, it's all subject to change depending on how the races progress. But a very tough race number 1 for a good number of drivers, with quite a few incidents, indeed some major elbows out race, and also some incidents that perhaps did not need to happen, and indeed perhaps the rawness of our drivers to take on a very tricky and technical circuit, and also one that is very tight. And the big question will be, will our drivers settle down to a degree in race number 2, or will they look to up the tempo? Well, we will find out very shortly, as we are only a few minutes away from race number 2 going to the grid. But one thing is for certain, in amongst all the madness and whatnot, we also had some big stories, and perhaps the biggest story, of course, in what was the Pro-Am class was Reese Watt taking his maiden win of the season, as we see him in the pit lane here and making his way on around. In fact, he's made his way out the pit lane already, I should say, and the JW Motorsport drivers coming charging on through and around the circuit already. And in fact, well, he did say, matter of fact, he wasn't quite sure where the pace came from in what was the practice session. They went into qualifying and also into race number 1, and that pace stayed with him all the way through. And in fact, we may try and just get a quick word with him once again, given the fact he's had an absolutely phenomenal start to his proceedings tonight. And can he make it 2 out of 2? We will find out very shortly. In fact, we will ask him the question himself, for as he gets ready to go race, he joins us once again in the broadcasting room very briefly. And Reese, sorry to bother you once again, but we had to do it after, of course, you set your expectations or play them quite low or quiet in the build-up to qualifying and race number 1, but picking up your maiden win in the series, you must be over the moon.
As I say, I think I got quite lucky in the beginning, to the unfortunate of like Alan, but yeah, I'll just try to keep it clean, not get involved too much with the pros, and yeah, just try to bring it home nice and clean.
Well, you definitely made sure to get right in the fight with the pros, but at the same time steer clear when the time was right. And the question is, are we expecting it 2 out of 2 now in race number 2?
I can try my best. My best.
Well, fingers crossed for you that you can. We wish you all the best in that, but we'll leave you to your final race preparations once more.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
So as we leave him to his race preparations, that very happy Reese Watt, and as he goes into this second race, of course, now the pressure will be on for him to make it 2 out of 2. But definitely a race 2, remember, that is certain. But for some of the other drivers, not quite perhaps the race that they wanted, but they'll be getting themselves set and ready to go once again. And, well, one driver who definitely had a race I think he would have hoped would have gone a little bit better was our pro driver of Michael Lease of Excite Racing. And with 3 minutes to go, getting himself all set and ready. And in fact, we might just be able to grab a brief word with him from the car of Michael Lease as we do just try to get a pat through to his car. And in fact, as he does briefly join us for a moment from within the car for Excite Racing, Michael, race number 1, a great qualifying session, a very strong start to your race, but it looked as though it all started to fall away within the last 5 laps. What happened?
Oh, mate, what a nightmare. I think my front tyres just completely melted. Oh, hang on a sec. Let me catch that. Yeah, my front tyres just completely melted. I couldn't stop the car in the corners. I ended up, after getting sort of, not forced off the track, but sort of put wide to the chicane, I ended up off the track and about 5 cars past me. I decided to wind the brake bias back a lot, and that seemed to help things. That seemed to help cool the front tyres. So I'm going to do that from the very start of this race and just hope that I've actually got a bit of front grip.
Indeed, we saw you were an absolute flyer at the beginning of the race and really getting stuck in amongst the pros. And I have to ask, how are you finding it racing in amongst the top class of the field?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I don't think I'm ready for it. I think I had a lucky round at Donington because we'd had like a couple of weeks practice beforehand. So, I'd had a lot of practice around the circuit. Whereas this one, today is the first time I've gone round here in a touring car. To be honest, it's the first time I've done it on this sim. I love the track on other sims, but yeah, it's the first time I've sort of actually attempted it on iRacing. So yeah, I don't think I'm ready to be there. I think that's a mistake, honestly. But I'm there. I'll give it a shot. I'll do my best.
Well, we wish you all the best in race number 2. We'll leave you to it and hopefully see you do well at the checkered flag.
Yeah, I hope so. Cheers.
So releasing Michael to focus on his racing now, and indeed some thoughts from our different drivers there and different perspectives. And we're saying that he perhaps didn't deserve to be promoted, wasn't ready to be promoted to the pro class, but of course time will tell for the Excite Racing driver. But we heard there from Excite Racing's Michael Lees and also from what was JW Motorsports' Reese Watt as we get ready to go once again. But we look to Will Redford here, currently the fastest man in this final warm-up session. And well, of course, it being a short warm-up session for race number 2, will have a lot less time available to them than the drivers, so really just keeping their eye in here as we get ready to go once again. But one thing that is worth noting, we've had quite a bit of cloud come over the circuit, and that lowered visibility with the sunlight going away for a brief moment. Perhaps that will change the tone, indeed it will change the track temperature, and could we see a lower rate of degradation for a good number of our drivers, and could it favour some of our drivers? That will be the big question as the checkered flag comes on out. And just a quick bit of housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen. We have updated our time and tell. We did see that Rob McGregor was incorrectly listed as a pro for the purposes of race number 1. He's been reassigned to Pro-Am as per his actual class classification. But now, coming onto our grid then for race number 2, they line up as follows. It is Mikey Doble who takes pole position once again, and joined by his teammate from NDA Honda Racing on the front row, Will Redford. They'll continue the battle into race number 2. Adam Delmont from Excite Racing starts off row 2 with Jamie Doria alongside, and it's Kieran Sharp and Gianni Perrone who make up row number 3. Then it's John Higgins Jr. and Sam Smith who line up together on row number 4, with Martin Shirley and Andrew Pike on row number 5 completing the top 10. Adam McNally, the last of our leading pro group, P11, with Reese Watt from JW Motorsport starting off in P12 there, the Pro-Am winner in race number 1. And behind them we have John Higgins Sr. and Michael Lees who start together on the 7th row, with Lee Horn and Joseph Doble on the 8th row, Gavin Garnett and Chris Daines on the 9th row, and then it will be Trevor Anderson and Jason Morris who make up row number 10, as we then see on row 11 Ian Manners and Mark Sykes, followed by Matt Emmons and Isaac Doble on row number 12, as we continue to work our way on down. And then see on row 13 Nick Clemens and Alan McCain. We'll have to stop ourselves there, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time for us to go racing. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for race number 2 as Mikey Doble versus Will Redford continues. And as they make their way down towards turn number 1, this time in the long charge, who will come out on top under braking? Well, you can see Kieran Sharp behind it, already salivating at the prospect of making a move into the opening corner, but he can't find it. Goes deep, it's going straight on there. Was one of the Excite machines, but meanwhile, further back, it's come together already at turn number 1. It's a major shunt. That's Gavin Gardner, that's also Michael Lees. By the looks of things, Mark Sykes getting in there as well as Reese Watt's held on. Meanwhile, I think we could see there Trevor Anderson having to take to the grass on the exit of 1. It's gone very, very wrong for a couple of drivers, but not for everyone as they make their way. Oh, goodness me, and it's gone very wrong for 2 drivers there. And I think that is Tom Delaney who's had a whack to the wall. So Davide Farvo, there's a lot to unpick here on what is lap number 1 already, and we're not even halfway round, but it's gone wrong for many. And meanwhile, we can see here Sam Smith, meanwhile, gaining in all of the drama. He's up to P5 from P8 on the grid, so he's had an absolutely stellar start as he brings himself up to pace and goes hunting after Perrone as they make their way down towards turn number 8. As they make their way into the right hander here, well, they're going to have to settle it down now as they get themselves set. Well, it's going to be another 15 laps of racing after this one. Indeed, we had confirmed all the races are 16 laps, not the originally scheduled 17, as they make their way on down and around through turn number 11. But as they come to the end of lap number 1 here, it is Will Redford who leads as he comes across the timeline ahead of Mikey Doble P2, followed by Adam Delmont P3, and then Gianni Perrone P4. Sam Smith behind P5, followed by what is there, Kieran Sharp P6. And as they make their way into the braking zone, that's your top 6, breaking away from John Higgins Jr. in P7, and Andrew Pike P8, Martin Shelley P9, Jamie Dory P10, and then Reese Watt, your Pro-Am leader. He carries on the story as he makes his way around in P11 ahead of Joseph Doble, who's gained 4 places since the start, and Lee Horn, who's running P13, third of our Pro-Am runners, and he has gained 2 places as well. So it's been great success for the pair. Meanwhile, Adam McNally having a bit of a bad run there, and he was the Honda Civic we saw go very deep for Excite Racing into turn number 1 and almost missed the corner in its entirety, and a number of drivers really getting caught out by the cold brakes on the car as they make the way on around and down. As he heads down into the braking zone here, onto the brakes he goes, but now he's got Chris Daines trying to find a way round, but in the end has to try and extend the corner, but he can't. He goes overly deep, and Chris Daines there on the inside into 6. It's side by side between the 2 pros as they come up the hill, but Daines is going to be made to go the long way round the houses here if he wants to get it done. I don't think he's going to have enough momentum to get it done as they come on through and into turn number 8 they go, but Daines definitely trying to set himself up for success, but finds himself going a little bit wide out of 8 there, and has to settle the car back on down, and with Higgins Senior just behind as well. And of course we saw Higgins Senior and Chris Daines come together in race number 1. Well, right now I think Daines wants to get a move on here, not just to get away from Higgins Senior, but also because I think he feels as though he's got the pace to be definitely hunting after the top 10 in class. But as they make their way on to another lap here, you can see right now having the difficulty of finding his way past Pro Pierre Adam McNally as they head on to lap number 3, and further behind Daniel Holmer. We haven't talked about too much the Bright Esports driver here, and one of the major championship contenders going into this round, looking up the inside of Philip Broberg. He goes on the inside here. It's the battle of the Elantras. We've got some brake dust kicking up in front, and I believe that was from Sebastian Broberg. And as they come through the right hand, you can see Daniel Holmer getting a nice run through the corner, and now making his way up towards turn number 4. And Will Holmer holding off Broberg there, who scrambles left, right, and centre. And the two Bright Esports drivers going toe to toe there. Of course, they are teammates, but the thing is, right now they both want to be the lead driver, and Holmer almost losing it, and Jonathan Collins right now having gained a couple of places since the start, getting 3 to be precise, looking at the rear of this battle thinking, keep it up guys, I want to get involved as well. But meanwhile we look just a bit further up the road, and Matt Evans on the inside battling side by side with Nick Clibbins, and Clibbins trying to go the long way round for iRacing Esports here. It's the battle for overall position of P24, not in class, of course, Evans being pro and meanwhile Clibbins being pro. And as they come down into the chicane, Clibbins is going all in here, and I think he's going to get it done with Evans backing out, trying to look for the cutback there, but it's only one line through the chicane, and Clibbins leads it as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 11. But into the pits, I believe, is Mark Sykes with damage to the car, so his race has taken a turn for the worse as our drivers make their way on to a full flap and come on to the first quarter of this race almost being complete. But as we look a little bit further up the road, Matthew Addy here under pressure from Ian Manners in the battle for P8 in the prime class. Manners on the inside comes in very hot, and Addy there gives him the space, and Manners goes very deep. Oh goodness me, and Clibbins there trying to come through in the chaos, and in turn gets turned as Manners is sent wide there by Addy. But I think all 3 drivers having difficulty in handling the situation. That Clibbins has found his way on through, but not the way he wanted it to. But I think right now the number 13 driver will take what he can get, given the way his race 1 went, as they make the way through turn number 4 and down towards 5. Behind them, however, that's Daniel Weston, who is a lap down as they make the way up towards turn number 5. Onto the brakes they go, and Evans here battling with Matthew Addy. It's the battle of the 2 Matthews as they make the way through. Evans squeezes his rival a little bit. Weston takes a look up the inside here, but being listed as a lap down, he's going to be careful of the fact he'll have blue flags waving. He thinks he can unlap himself in amongst these drivers, but I think they would beg to differ as they come right on through the right-hander and down into turn number 8 they break. But as they make the way on through, we look a bit further up the order to Sam Smith, right now in the second pack, if you will, outside the top 3, where it's the run from P4 all the way back to P20 in a long line as they come down towards turn number 1 once again. And Smith under pressure from Pike. Pike looks up the inside. The Elantra driver here trying to gain ground. He's seen what Kieran Sharp was able to do in race number 1, and he wants a piece of the cake as well in terms of getting into that top 5 as they soldier their way through 1, 2 and 3. And we ride on board here with Andrew Pike as he makes his way up the hill towards turn number 4, and we are really now starting to see the rise of the Sim Racing Collective drivers as they make their way into this race number 2. Deeper and deeper they go, both of them inside the top 10, one in the top 5 in race number 1, and now they're pushing on to try and get both drivers into the top 10 in this second race. They make their way onto the brakes, but coming down hard into turn number 5, and it's so close there, it makes you clench every time as you think he's going to take the rear of Smith away. But that goes to show how late they can brake and the confidence these drivers have in terms of being able to balance the distance and the braking between the cars as they make their way through turn number 7. And as they come up towards turn 8 here, no real move materialising for Pike at the moment, but what he'll definitely be trying to do is pressure Smith to take life out of the front tyres of that Honda again, much like we saw for Michael Leeson the Velocity. We did see for our leaders right towards the end of the race, if they can get those tyres to wear off early in that battle, then it gives the driver who's on the offensive with the better tyres a major advantage, for the simple reason they'll have so much more grip. But as they come charging on down and around here onto another lap, it's not coming together for Andrew Pike right now in terms of a movement at the back of this group in the battle for P10, P9. It is John Higgins Jr. who holds off Jamie Dory right now, with Reese Watt behind there, the prime leader just looking on and not trying to get into the fight. As we say hello to Stiganator South Africa there in the YouTube chat, it says good evening to Stefan Vessels as well. Hope you're doing well, Stiganator, as the drivers press on. But meanwhile, speaking of pressing on here, Lee Horn right now, he's got P3 in the prime class in his sights, and now he's also looking for P2 as he makes his way in the pursuit behind Joseph Doble. But the thing is, for the number 36 driver here in the battle of the Hondas, we saw in race number 1 just how strong Joseph Doble's defensive abilities are, and he's going to look to defend ever harder, I think, here to bring home his first podium in class today as they make the way through turn number 5. But as the Next Gen Racing yellow driver looks on here, the one thing we know about Lee Horn is that he's a very tactical driver. He focuses on managing the car first and looking for the moves later on. I think right now, given the fact he'll know those front tyres on that Civic will wear very quickly as this race wears on. If he pushes too hard, he's going to focus on tyre preservation all the way to the final few laps, and that will be his ace up his sleeve. But as they make the way out to the chicane, he can't find the move immediately, and so he waits on as we look a little bit further back to Chris Daines here, who right now continues to gain places, gaining 3 since the start, but he finds himself behind John Higgins Sr. He was passed by Sr. only moments ago, and how did that happen? Let's take a look back. It was in the run down towards what was turn number 5, and there we can see Chris Daines in contact with Adam McNally, and as a result dropping behind him. McNally, they're trying to get back in on the hunt into turn number 7 but couldn't find it. You can see Gavin Gardner as well find himself tucked in behind. Well, that's what led to it. As you can see a flash of the lights there from Adam McNally, not too pleased about how that played out, but in practice that's how the drivers are shaped up in the run, and Chris Daines continues to try and pick his way up through the order as he comes charging on through. But meanwhile, we look back to Jason Morris here, who running in at P20, the last of the runs inside the top 20, trying to look around the outside of Trev Anderson under braking here, but will he be able to do so into turn number 5? I don't think so there, as the JWM machine stays strong, and the iRacing Esports driver made to go a little bit deep and wide. Nick Clemens behind, meanwhile, having gained 4 places since the start of this race, also watching on and looking to try and pick his way on through, but you can see there that Trev Anderson definitely digging deep for that P6 in the Prime class, P19 overall, as they come down through 8 and in to 9, and really seeing what he can do here to hold the fast charging iRacing Esports pair at bay. As you can see, Trevor Anderson now breaking away as Morris here has to try and contend with Nick Clemens, who looks up the inside. I think Clemens here trying to get the message through to his teammate, look, let me go, I may be able to help you in bringing down Anderson, but it's going to be a battle with the teammates across the line as they come down. And meanwhile, Lee Horn, we look here to the battle for the lead of the Prime class. It's 3 wide between Horn, Doble and Watt, and well, my goodness, Lee Horn comes on through, and John Higgins Sr. here on the inside of turn 2. He's come out of left field, he's pushing on, but Watt gets his elbows out there and says we can make contact as they make the way through turn number 4. But you can see Chris Daines on the inside as they come through turn number 4 right now, and Daines has to pick his moments very carefully here for the simple reason he's been in this situation a number of times already where he's got to pick his way past the primes. He looks up the inside into the hairpin, 3 wide they go. John Higgins Sr. backs out there, I think, behind Collins. Oh goodness me, Daines is turned again, and that must be absolutely frustrating after he almost got it done, only to be peeled off the circuit in the end by what was Reese Watt's car. But we'll take a look back at exactly what happened there and what led to all the battling between the drivers as we now get a replay of exactly what happened. This is how it all started then. Lee Horn battling with Reese Watt and Doble as they came down, and Lee Horn decided to make it 3-1 and going all in, but they compressed under braking, and Lee Horn making the tap with Watt there, and that set off the chain reaction. Now with regards to Chris Daines being in the hunt of all of this, of course they made the way up the hill. You can see here he's trying to pick up the pieces, much like what was trying to be done there by John Higgins Sr. as they charged up the hill, but as they made the way into turn number 4, will Daines continue to pick his way on through. Higgins Sr. there, and as we ride on board here with Higgins Sr., what you're going to see, he's effectively got Daines on his left hand side. You can just see him there in the rearview mirror, and as they broke the way into the corner, 3 wide here, Higgins Sr. given a bit of an elbow out, and then the contact between Daines and Watt, that's what upset the 2 drivers there, sent Daines wide. Gavin Gardner picked his way around the outside, and a huge series of incidents and events there, everybody really fighting hard for it, but in the end only one driver able to benefit from it, and it was Lee Horn who has picked it all up with regards to being in the lead of the Prime class. Could you argue that he started off the chain of events there? Some would argue yes, some would argue he just went for the move and it was a brief bit of contact and everybody else then up the ante, but either way you look at it, Lee Horn is now the Pro-Am leader here in P11 with just shy of what is 7 laps remaining as they make the way on through. But as he comes on down towards turn number 1 in the long run now, he's got all the pros in front of him here, the pro trio of Smith, Higgins Jr. and Jamie Dory, and they're all fighting over P8 overall and in class as they make the way in towards the braking zone. But as they come down onto the anchors here, it's going to get very close as Higgins Sr. looks up the inside. He goes a bit deep, however, but you can see there how Dory not able to capitalise on the situation, instead of having to back out, and Higgins Jr. gets the move done. quite blunt about it, but to be fair, you've got to be blunt here given how tight this circuit is, and he gets it done for HSR. A nice move as they make their way through turn number 4, but as they come through the right-hander and now down towards turn number 5, you can see that Dory trying to look for the return here versus Smith, as Smith has to defend to the inside. Meanwhile, Lee Horn just watches on here. Well, the problem for Lee Horn is the more these guys battle, the more Joseph Doble will close up behind as they make their way out of turn 5 and through 6 and 7 they go. But Dory in the end backing out then, knowing he can't really make it too wide and make it work from inside to outside in the run through 6 and 7, and playing it smart here with there still being plenty of time on the schedule given the fact they have got just under half the race distance to go, and also the big quotient of tyre wear lingering as they make their way on through the chicane. But as they come on through here, we look back to Nigel Stott in the 52 with Crest Racing Velocity here, where it's a monster of a machine, and right now Nigel Stott, I think, Hanwellow's races whereby it's not quite gone his way so far. Albeit he's gained 5 places since the start, having been starting from the very back of the field, now to P29, chasing after Mark Sykes, currently P15 in the Prime class, Mark Sykes P14, and trying to pick up a few more places. But as they come on through, we've got Lee Horn who's off. Oh, goodness me, what on earth has happened to Lee Horn? It's gone wrong for him, and now you have a new leader in the Prime class, oh, that Joseph Doble. We're hearing that Sam Smith's been involved in that instant as well, so I think it was a coming together between Lee Horn and Sam Smith, and we're about to get a replay of exactly what happened. Well, it was in the run down towards turn 1, and Lee Horn there. Well, I think that's Jamie Dory, in fact, on his inside. Lee Horn coming in on the brakes, and Lee Horn getting it wrong under braking, and that's what led Smith round and Lee Horn to the wall. So Lee Horn there, when he was leading, getting it wrong under braking, and that's what's released Joseph Doble into the lead of the Pro-Am class. Well, to be fair, right now, whilst it has been the big story of Mikey Doble over the course of the season in round number 1, and continuing that story in the Pro class today so far, Joseph Doble, I think, will be smiling a little bit right now, but also reminding himself, you're not at the end of the race yet, do not get it wrong as he makes his way through the chicane. The good news for him is his next rival in the Prime class is back here in P13, and that is John Higgins Sr. But the bad news for Joseph Doble is he's got 2 pros behind him, and I don't think those pros want to be behind him for long, and that is Gavin Gardner and Adam McNally, as Gavin Gardner here looks to go up the inside of McNally. They're going to look to go 3 wide here into turn number 1, and we've seen how many times it's not gone well into turn 1 when it's gone 3 wide, but as Gavin Gardner looks to go the base, Doble's turned across, but he catches the car just about. Adam McNally there stops before he can push Doble any further into a T-bone situation as they make their way through turn 2. John Higgins Sr. looks on the outside, there's a small bit of contact, but Higgins Sr. there gets the move done, and now we have another new leader in the Prime class, and the HSR drive comes up for us. Alan McCain looks up the inside of Joseph Doble, and how one lap can make it all turn as Reese Watsall's through the fight here as they make their way 3 wide down towards turn number 5. Doble coming across there. I think that's a bit cheeky from Doble as McCain backs out there sensibly, I think, realising it's only going to end in tears as they come through turn number 5, and Reese what goes round the outside through 6 to the inside of 7, and the JW Motorsport driver now returns to being within eyes and earshot of what is the lead of the Prime class. One more place lies ahead of him here as he presses his way down through turn number 8 and into 9. But my goodness, this race is absolutely going up another level in the Prime class here. They're all absolutely fighting tooth and nail to be on the podium, let alone the win in the Prime class as they come through the final corner. And you can see there Alan McCain right now, well, he's a little bit clear from Trev Anderson behind, but Trev Anderson as well finally getting an opportunity to run in the top 5 of the Prime class here as they make their way down towards the braking zone for turn 1. He's got Nick Clibbins on his inside. And surely he'll let Clibbins go for the simple reason he doesn't need to fight the pro driver right now. And Clibbins has got a lot of pace at his fingertips, but Anderson's still going to hold the inside here into 2. He's going to make it hard for Clibbins, and I think right now Clibbins will be saying, why not just let me go and let me do the work for you in terms of closing up to the drivers in front. But Anderson focusing on only one thing, and that is holding position as they make their way through 4 and down towards 5. And as they come charging down towards the braking zone a little bit further back, Sam Smith here, despite that instant with Lee Horn, only a few laps to go, still on the charge. He looks to the move versus Sebastian Broberg. Up the outside he goes here. He's going to have to go all the way around, but Broberg's going to go deep. But Smith keeps it there as they come on through. Can he hold the inside to 7. He can as he goes down the outside of 6, and Sam Smith gets it done, but he goes deep. Broomberg looks back up the inside, but immediately he compresses him onto the apex curve there, but Broomberg's not just going to disappear, and as they make the way through 8, it's side by side here in the battle for P13, the Pro Class, P20 overall, but Smith gets it done in the end and holds off Sebastian Broomberg, who really put the effort in there to try and make the return move, but he couldn't quite find the final 5%, as meanwhile we look up to Gavin Gardner, who runs in P10 overall and in class, as he's got the Adam McNally going all the way around the outside. My goodness, will that look like poetry in motion? But in the end he had to slow the car to find some grip, and Gavin Gardner in the end holding off Adam McNally as he tries to fend off this fight for P10 as he makes his way up the hill in towards turn number 4. And as they come on through now, of course, we can see that the Audi, with there being no ballast on the car, the Audi does start to pick up that pace versus its rivals. The Hondas in particular now really struggling. I would imagine at the start of the race McNally might have been able to make that move around the outside and carry the greater momentum, but now he's battling against front tyre, where you can see goes a bit deep on the outside there, and now Higgins Senior looking up the inside. And surely, given the way it's gone for our Pro-Am leaders, Higgins Senior will use that veteran experience not to push it too hard, because he knows there's a win at stake in class as they make the way into turn number 8. But behind him is Reese Watt, and the problem is with McNally and Garner battling side by side into the chicane, and Higgins Senior comes on in, but in return McNally gives him a return push, and as a result there, I think Higgins Senior with that tap, he's cost himself very dearly, as now Reese Watt, in a very emotional start to this race, now returns to the lead of the Pro-Am class with only 2 laps to go, and I don't think he can believe it. We certainly can't believe it here in the commentary booth, for the simple reason the JW Motorsport driver has literally gone from hero to 0 back to hero in the space of 14 laps being turned at the Spanish circuit. Things are very calm up front in the Pro class, I can tell you, and here is your Pro leader of Mikey Doble, who currently finds himself the best part of almost a second clear of Will Redford behind, and they're living it relatively peacefully out of the circuit here, with Gianni Perrone having moved up to P3 over the duration of the race and looking strong for this podium fight versus Adam Delmont. But in the Pro-Am class, race number 2 is all about the Pro-Ams, and they are literally going for it left, right and centre. And speaking of that, you can see it going up the inside. That is Morris. That's Jason Morris looking up the inside of Matthew Addy in the battle for P18, and Morris there tried to get it done. He couldn't quite find it, and Matthew Addy there making sure that Morris had to back out as they come through turn 6 into 7. White flag out for our race leaders. Higgins Senior really struggling with the damage on the car to carry the pace through turns 6 and 7 as they make the way into turn number 8. But as they come on through, you can see that Morris all over the back. He's going to look at the inside to the chicane. It's going to be a very bold move, and Matthew Addy there simply says, well, you could go for it, but you're going to have to go over the apex curve, and that's not going to help your aspirations at all. And he holds the position firmly as they make the way down and around and on to their final lap. But as they come on through, we look a bit further up the road here to Joseph Doble, who's got the pressure, and Nick Clibbons behind. And of course, Clibbons wanted to find his way on through just to inch himself a little bit further up the order. He won't be eligible for the reverse grid draw, given it's only the top 12 places that could potentially be drawn. But as they come on through turn 1 into 2, you can see here Joseph Doble battling hard for P2 in the Pro-Am class, but really this is for P13 overall, given that Clibbons is a pro driver. He's not a Pro-Am, and Joseph Doble right now really working himself hard here, and is he costing himself time with Alan McCain only a few attempts behind? We'll have to wait to see as McCain now really trying to go on the offensive here as they make the way in towards when it's turn number 5. They come onto the brakes, and McCain too far back to try and go for the move, but we must cut away from them, ladies and gentlemen, because as he led the race all the way through in the end to the conclusion in race number 1, he's going to make it 2 out of 2 in race number 2. Mikey Doble is your winner overall, and in the Pro class here in race 2 ahead of Will Redford, and it'll be Gianni Perrone who finds himself on the podium once more, well, at least for the first time this season, our recollection's correct, of Adam Delmont P4, Andrew Pike P5, and another superb drive there for the Sim Racing Collective driver Kieran Sharp P6, and then Martin Shirley P7, head of John Higgins Jr. P8, Jamie Dory P9, Gavin Garner P10, Adam McNally P11, and Reese Watt makes it back-to-back wins here in Spain as he flashes lights, so you can understand why he's absolutely pleased in perhaps the most adverse circumstances, with Nick Clifford's P13, Joseph Doble P14, holding on to P2 in the end, head of Alan McCain in the Pro-Am class, who rounds up the Pro-Am podium. Trev Anderson there just missing out on the podium, P16 overall. John Higgins Senior P17, Matthew Addy P18, Jason Morris P19, and then Sam Smith rounding off your top 20 with Sebastian Broomberg behind him, and then Matt Evans P22. and getting some good ground in this race, moving up to P8 of the Pro-Am class with Daniel Homer P23, Ian Manners P24 behind him, and then Philip Bruberg there P25 with Daniel Weston alongside him finishing a lap down P31, Jonathan Collins P26, Mark Sykes P27 as you see him making his way through turns 2 and 3 there, Nigel Stott just behind him P28, and then Lee Horn coming on home P29 after a difficult day in race number 2, and Michael Lees P30 there, and well, both drivers having a race that they will not be too pleased with and will be looking to turn it around for certain in what is race number 3, but those are your lead lap finishers, and well, with the results all in, ladies and gents, we're very shortly we'll give you those race standings any moment now, but definitely the one word I think we could use for race number 2, dramatic, in the fact that in the Pro-Am class in particular, there seems to be battles left, right and centre, and our drivers pushing one another to the utmost, but I do wonder whether they may have to rein it in just a little bit for what is race number 3, because of course the elbows out race I think only escalating as time wears on. But here are the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and I think there may be a few, and well, we start off of course with our overall standings, so we can see Mikey Doble making it 2 wins out of 2 overall ahead of Will Redford and Gianni Perrone, who complete the podium, and congratulations to the NDA Honda Racing pair for making it a double stack once again, but also to Verano Motorsports Perrone for bringing home his maiden podium in this series. Then Adam Delmont P4 ahead of Andrew Pike P5, Kieran Sharp P6, Martin Shirley P7, John Higgins Jr. P8, Jamie Dory P9 and Gavin Garner P10, and then Adam McNally best the rest in P11. And a special mention of course to P12 finisher Reese Watt, your double winner in the AM class so far today for JW Motorsport, and also to Joseph Doble and Alan McCain P14, P15 respectively for bringing home the AM podium positions, the Pro-Am podium positions we should say, there with Doble P2 in the class and Alan McCain P3 in the class. But as we come on to the individual class results, we can see here a repeat effectively of the top 11 from the overall. Mikey Doble ahead of Will Redford and Gianni Perrone to make the podium, with Adam Delmont P4, Andrew Pike P5, and then Kieran Sharp, Martin Shirley, John Higgins Jr., Jamie Dory and Gavin Garner completing the top 10. Best of the rest, Adam McNally ahead of Nick Clewins, Sam Smith, Sebastian Bruberg, Michael Lees and Chris Daines with that difficult moment in this race, dropping a long way down the order and having to retire in the end 8 laps from the finish with the damage that was picked up, but we're hoping to see him come back and come back fighting strong in race number 3. And then in the Pro-Am class, meanwhile, your winner, Reese Watt, double winner by 2 seconds in the end, almost over Joseph Doble and Alan McCain at P3. And for Joseph Doble, I think he'll be wondering what could have been if it weren't for the way it played out. And the same, of course, for what is P5 finisher John Higgins, senior finishing behind Trevor Anderson, who was in P4, Matthew Addy P6, Jason Morris P7, Matt Emmons P8, Daniel Homer P9, and Ian Manners P10. Philip Bruber, best of the rest, P11, ahead of Jonathan Collins, Mark Sykes, Nigel Stock, Lee Horn, who with that incident into the back of Sam Smith into turn number 1, so it all fall away, but P15 was where he finished in this race in the class. Daniel Weston P16, Isaac Doble P17, Davide Favo P18, with Weston onwards finishing a lap or more down. And as we look to the rest of the Pro-Am class there, Elwin Sykes P19, Paul Scott with the early retirement P20, and Tom Delaney unfortunately not being able to complete a single lap due to technical issues, P21. Well, that was the results for race number 2, ladies and gentlemen. And now as we get ready for the build-up to race number 3, you know what time it is. It is time for the reverse grid draw. So as we cut to the commentary booth here, we start off with just a reminder that the number 9, which is on this sticky note, is not eligible for today. So we're going to chuck that over our shoulder there, so it's out the way entirely. And now we only have the numbers 6, 7, 8, 10, 11 and 12 in the lottery bowl. So without further ado, we're going to close our eyes, give them a shuffle, and pull out our number for today. Okay, and we now do the draw. And our number for today, and reverse grid poll, will go to... It will be going to P10, which means that that will be Gavin Garner who takes pole position for race number 3. It's going to be a top 10 inverted of pros, but Gavin Garner is going to have a huge opportunity in the Audi RS3 to try and make a major result in the final race of today. Will he be able to pull it off, however? The only time will tell, but we will find out, ladies and gentlemen, in the build-up, which is coming in about 5 to 7 minutes' time. We'll be back shortly. You won't want to miss race number 3. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the final race of today in the NXTCC Season 2's Round 2 here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya National Layout. And well, what a fantastic pair of races we've had so far. Two very intense races indeed. In race number 2, we saw battling aplenty in the Pro class, but in the Pro-Am class, we saw the battling taken to a whole new level. And in the end, through a roundabout set of circumstances, Reswap was to make it 2 out of 2. But the question is now, as we get ready to go racing for the final time with 16 more laps on the schedule in race number 3, will we see Reswap make it 3 out of 3 and pick up his 3 maiden victories? And will we potentially see an Audi bring home a podium, given the fact that Gavin Garner will be starting from pole position with the top 10 reverse grid? Well, as we see him here making his way on around, that question, of course, is going to be one that only he can answer through his driving ability. And in fact, I think he will be very shortly being patched through to us from the car as he makes his way on down into what is turn number 5. And as we do get a direct feed to him once he does clear the hairpin there, so as not to distract him on perhaps one of the more difficult corners in terms of getting it right. I believe he does join me right now in the broadcasting room for a patch through from his car. Gavin, a good race number 2, gaining ground in the Audi RS3 and finding yourself on reverse grid pole for race number 3. You looking forward to it?
Little bit. Yeah, a bit nervous. I'm not feeling as comfortable as last season, sort of pace-wise. There's a lot of very quick guys in the league now, but yeah, it should be a bit of fun at least.
You do seem to be getting stronger and stronger in the races as time goes on, particularly those last 5 laps the car seems to be coming alive. Are you really noticing the difference in terms of having no weight in the car compared to your rivals on that success ballast?
It's definitely feeling closer than last week. I think the Audi having nothing on it is definitely helping. I think the Honda still feels to me like it's stronger than the Audi is, but I think perhaps the other two Hyundais are feeling closer, and so the gap to the Honda is definitely a little bit smaller than it was, although I'm not expecting to be able to hold any of them behind me.
Well, you never know. Have you got a target in mind for this race, or you're just going to see how it goes?
I just want to finish. Yeah, there's been a few incidents to other guys in my team, so if I can finish without too many incidents, I'll be happy.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on, Gavin. But with that, we'll leave you to your final preparations and with your team. But all the best in race number 3.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
So that was Gavin Gardner being patched through to us from the Audi RS3 as he makes his way around the circuit here and looking to survive first and foremost. Understandable, indeed, see what he can pick up as time goes on. But a very interesting point there he raised, that he was noticing that as the racing goes on, that it does seem as though, in particular, the Hyundai start to pull away with that additional weight in the car. The Honda, not as much, and still just about holding an advantage. But indeed, that success ballast started to have an effect for some of our drivers today. And, well, when it starts to have an effect, it is notable, of course, as we get ready to go one last time. But as he makes his way on around here, we do look to you guys and girls in the chat. And in particular, we can see there Stefan Vessels and also Stiganator in the YouTube chat talking about the battling and drivers going at full send tonight. And also Adam McNally there in the YouTube chat commenting one place away. Of course, with McNally missing out with that P11 edition race number 2. But less places to lose, of course, as a result, as he'll look to try and push his way up the order. And I believe right now Adam McNally parked in the pit lane, unless I'm very much mistaken. But we look forward to seeing how all of our drivers get on in the final race today. And place your bets, ladies and gents, but of course, as to who you think is going to be bringing home the win in each of the classes. Do you think Mikey Doble will make it a 3 out of 3 in the Pro class? And do you think in the Pro-Am class that it's going to be a triple for Reese Watt on his night where he picks up his first winning class? Can he make it 3 out of 3 and replicate what Mikey Doble, of course, is looking to do here today and did at Donington? Well, all those questions and more are about to be answered as the grid is about to be set and we're about to go racing one last time. So as our drivers get ready to go, ladies and gents, we've lost a little bit of our data, but I think we will be getting our feedback very shortly. We do apologise for that. We seem to have had a slight technical issue, but there is the grid then for what is race number 3. And you can see, starting on pole, Gavin Gardner ahead of Jamie Dory, with John Higgins Jr. and Martin Shirley line up side by side on row number 2. Kieran Sharp and Andrew Pite line up on row 3, with Adam Delman and Gianni Peroni line up on row 4. And then behind them, we have Will Redford and Mikey Doble, of course, the 2 NDA Honda Racing drivers line up side by side for the 3rd time this evening. They're on row number 5. Adam McNally and Reese Watt line up on row 6. Reese Watt, of course, being your Pro-Am pole sitter. And behind, we have the combination of Nick Clibbins and Joseph Doble, with Alan McCain and Trev Anderson on row number 8. John Higgins Sr. and Matthew Addy on row 9, with Jason Morris and Sam Smith on row 10. That's the gridding process complete, ladies and gentlemen. We have to cut away, as it's time for lights for one last time. 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final time this evening as our drivers pull off the line. I think we may have lost our racing audio, unfortunately. We are going to try and get that back as soon as possible. But I think we have had a slight technical issue. Do give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers make their way underway. But we are aware of it as Gavin Goller goes very deep into turn number 1. And as he comes on through the corners here, Jamie Dory holding on and in fact taking the lead of the race as they come roaring on through. And it seems as though the technical issues are plenty here as our drivers' liveries as well, only partially loading, so we are going to work on the audio issue as soon as possible for you as they come charging on through at turn number 4, and as they come rip-roaring through at the right hander here. Further down the order, things have seemingly stayed a little bit calm, although John Higgins Sr. having a bit of a nightmare moment coming through 4. In fact, I think there's quite a bit of damage on the car as he's parked on up, as meanwhile our drivers make their way on down towards turn number 5. But onto the brakes they go, and as they do, Isaac Doble here looking to try and go round the outside job for Collins. He can't quite find it, instead goes deep himself as Chris Daines again being turned, and well, he's just not having an evening to enjoy at all. He seems to be finding every which way to be involved in an instant, whether it's his fault or not. But as he makes his way back up to speed here, he's brought himself back onto the circuit, but finds himself a long way down now as he's got more ground to gain. He'll be fair, he's already gained 11 places off the start, so he is trying to find even further ground as he presses on. As meanwhile, we look to Matthew Addy here, who leads in the Pro-Am class after 1 lap turn, but battling side by side with Reese Watt as they make their way down towards turn number 1 on lap number 2. And as they come down into the braking zone here, ladies and gentlemen, both drivers side by side all the way, and Watt on the inside, Addy on the outside. And as they come onto the brakes, well, right now it looks as though Matthew Addy going deep. He looks at the cutback. He can't quite find it, however, as they make their way on around, but charging on through here. Both drivers doing everything in their power as they come out of the right-hander and head up the hill once again. But charging up towards turn number 4, we continue to try and work on those audio issues for you. We will get the audio back as soon as humanly possible as our drivers make their way on around here, but both drivers doing everything right now to press on. And in fact, as you can see here right now, Joseph Doble looking up the inside, trying to go for the move here. Late versus Addy comes on in, gets it done, but does he get it fully done as he comes on out? No, Addy gets the power on through and carries on his way as they make the way through the left into right sequence and coming through what is turns 6 and 7. Addy holding firm for the time being as they make their way now up the hill and down into turn number 8. But as they come roaring on down and around here, both drivers doing everything in their power to press on and charge on here as they come through the sequence of corners, but no change at the moment as they come through and down through turn number 11. Meanwhile, up front, Martin Shelley leads this race ahead of Jamie Dory as they make their way through the sequence of corners. And Martin Shelley right now trying to defend hard as they come onto the brakes here, but Jamie Dory trying to go around the outside as a result, as we do try to keep getting that audio back for you. And we can see Dory here sweeps on round and gets the move done as he gains the lead of this race. And Jamie Dory here, well, he's been a little bit under the radar for races 1 and 2, but he makes a small mistake there. Martin Shirley coming on back immediately as they come into turn number 4. They come through the right-hander, and as they roll the way through, now it's going to be 3 wide all the way in the run down. And who's going to come out on top here with Kieran Sharp and also Adam Delman trying to get into the mix, but you can see there that Shirley backs on out. Jamie Dory on the inside, Delman behind him. Meanwhile, Kieran Sharp tries to go around the outside. as they come on through, and meanwhile Adam Delman gets the move done, or does he, as Will Redford also tries to get into the mix. It's 2 by 2 as they come through turn number 7, and as they come on around the corner here, both drivers right now doing everything to try and push on as they make the way on around and through, but as they come down into turn number 8 and 9 and 10, you see here now they all have to settle down for the simple reason that they've got to find their way in order to be able to make their way into lap number 4 and pick up the pace into turn number 1, but as they come charge on through here, I think we might be getting our audio back now, ladies and gentlemen, which is good news, of course, that we have our audio returning, and hopefully you can hear that. Apologies, we're not quite sure what happened. What we do know that's happening right now is there's plenty of battling action on circuit, and indeed our drivers are absolutely loving it as they make the way on around here on another lap, and as they come on out of turns 1 and 2 and up towards 3, Mikey Doble at the back of this group trying to cut his way on around Andrew Pike, but he can't quite find it at the moment as they make the way up the hill and into turn number 4, but through the right hander they roll, and Doble waits there as Pike holds firm as they come down and around in towards turn number 5, but making their way up towards turn number 5 now. Onto the brakes they go, no change other than the fact that Doble does look for the move in the brake, and he goes very late in the day, but he gets it done there, and Pike losing the place as they make the way up towards turns 6 and 7. And coming for the right hand, and now we look from our pros who are battling hard to what is our front pros who are battling even harder here, and we can see that Kieran Sharp right now finds himself on the outside of what is their Redford as they make the way through the corners, and as they make the way on the long charge down through what is turn number 10 and in towards 11. Sharp dropping behind Will Redford, and Redford getting the move done there in classical style, but of course the big question is how exactly is it playing out in the Pro-Am lead battle? Well, we can tell you that Reese Watt has found its way back into the lead of the class as they make the way across the timeline and down towards turn number 1 once again. Onto the brakes they'll go shortly, and who will come out on top? That will be the challenge. Well, I think right now that Reese Watt will be feeling as though he's very comfortable here in terms of any challenges from behind because he's shown the pace, and Joseph Doble is a further 1.5 seconds behind as he tries to hold off Matthew Addy, who's also staying right on his rear. And of course Matthew Addy at one point battling for the lead of the class but falling backwards, but still he's got plenty to play for here, and looking at a podium given the way his evening's played out with a dismal race number 1, a recovering race number 2, and they're all coming together in race number 3. I think for Matthew Addy, he will be thinking one thing and one thing only, which is do not throw it away and gradually build up to the hump for P2 in class. But as they come through the left hand here of turn number 5 and in towards 6 once again, a bit further back, Michael Lees here battling with Weston, and that's Daniel Weston there, who for the most part of this evening has found himself right down towards the back of the field, alternatively a lap down, but now finds himself P19 on the lead lap, and the 52 Silver Chris Racing driver enjoying a better race number 3 compared to how things have played out in his previous races as he makes his way down through 8 and in towards 9 and 10, and we are starting to see some of our drivers' liveries coming through there, ladies and gentlemen. We're not sure why, but the livery loading service that we have, it seems to be having some difficulty, but still it doesn't stop us from being able to focus on the racing action that's the core here. And speaking of that, Alan McCain looks up the inside of Lee Horn on the exit of turn number 11 and gets the move then. Lee Horn on the outside, having to wait and whisper for a move later on as they come charging down towards turn number 1 once more, but Lee Horn here thinks about it, knowing the Honda's brakes are strong. Does he commit? No, he backs out there, and you can see that as they made the way into the braking zone, McCain gradually bringing the car across there to cover off Lee Horn. Of course, he's got to be careful in case Lee Horn went for the move, but McCain making it clear that if he tried to go for the move, it's only going to end one way, and that would be both drivers making their way off circuit. But meanwhile, we look up to race leader here, and that's Jamie Dory, who's got a bit deep into turn number 5, and as they come through 6 into 7, Delman's going to try and go all the way around the outside, but can he make it happen as Dory here tries to hold on with Redford also getting into the mix here. They come into turn number 8, and as they make the way downhill, you can see Dory still with Delman alongside. They make their way 2 by 2 into what is turn number 9, and look at Redford, he cuts back, it's 3 wide on the exit 10 into 11, and Will Redford with a little bit of nuance there takes the lead of the race. And my goodness, with the NDA Honda Racing driver showing you can go 3 wide on the exit 10 and make the move stick as he picks up a 2-for-1 special. And the problem is now that he's got to deal with a 3 wide scenario into 1 as Delman looks around the outside of Dory. Dory looks around the outside of Redford, and in doing so there, well, Jamie Dory right now may be mugged for position as they make the way into 2, and Adam Delman up the inside, but he gives the space to Dory there as they make the way up. And look at this from Kieran Sharp, who right now is showing no sense of patience. He wants to get it done and make the move into P3. He feels the time is right, but side by side they go, and as we ride on board here with Kieran Sharp, he has to back out as he finds himself losing a bit of momentum, and now it's the trio making their way in towards the braking zone here, and Delmont looks on the inside of Dory. Sharp, how heavy on the brakes is contact, and that contact comes from Shirley on his inside as they make their way through the corner. As they make their way up the hill now into turn number 7, well, we can tell you that Shirley's had to back out on that outside run and instead has to wait behind as they make the way through turn 7 into 8, but no change between the drivers. They come down to the braking zone for the chicane, other than Gavin Garner looks on behind all this after a difficult start to this race where he went overly deep into turn number 1, but perhaps for him this is the better part for him because now he can just massage the front tyres of the Audi and focus on the latter stages of the race. As they come down all the way towards turn number 1 and once again in the run onto the brakes they'll go very shortly, and well, you can see Delmont there taking a little bit of a peel out in towards the braking zone for 1, but he can't quite find it. As to settle back on in into the pits comes Mikey Doble. Mikey Doble's been in some damage with regards to the car as we understand it, so it's not gone in the way he's wanted it at all as our drivers make the way on up the hill here. But meanwhile further back, Lee Horn side by side here with Daniel Weston in the battle for P20 overall. That's P8 in the Prime class, and as they come through 1, well, right now the Next Gen Racing yellow driver will find his way on through past the 52 Zilla Crest Racing driver as they make the way through, but there you can see Matt Evans going very deep, and Evans now having to go defensive as Weston looks on here and tries to squeeze his way up the inside into turn number 4, but he can't quite find it, and then he has to back out as he makes his way through the corner, and Matt Evans here now finds himself under major pressure and trying to get the speed of the Audi to keep him safe. But Lee Horner, of course, very daft and devilish on the brakes, we should say, with regards to making the moves. And right now as he makes his way up through turn 6 and 7, Lee Horn definitely looking for that potential overtake as he can't quite find it there, but showing to Matt Edmonds that he's ready to make the move under braking next time around. But as they come through at turn number 8 down into 9 and 10 here, Weston trying to stay strong, but can he find a waiver? He looks at there, a little bit of contact, and Lee Horn there turns in to find Weston going all in and committing, but in the end they both survive it, albeit Lee Horn stays ahead. As meanwhile up front we look to the battle here for P2. And Jamie Dory defending versus Adam Delmont, but Delmont again on that inside into 2 from the outside of 1, and Adam Delmont definitely trying to really make a point here, which is he can hold position as they make the way into the right hander of West turn number 4, but through the right hander they go, and Jamie Dory now in a position whereby he falls back behind. But look at Kieran Sharp here, the Elantra driver, who continues to stay true to his word, which is trying to push on and gain places, and as they make their way through, Delmont turns and there's contact between them, and Kieran Sharp comes on through for the Sim Racing Collective. And meanwhile Martin Shirley from Simtech Racing now tries to find a way past Delmont. He can't quite find it as they all stack up and come through turn number 7, but it is absolutely on a knife edge right now in this battle to be P2 in the Pro class, and overall you have got P2 through to P8 only separated by 2 seconds if that, as they make the way on through. And let's not forget then there's Reese Watt in P9, he's leading the Prime class still as they make the way through turn number 11 and come on through to complete with lap number 9. Onto lap 10 they go, and right now the Prime leader just needs to focus on one thing, and that is staying in the lead. As you see here, Matthew Addy still being hounded by Joseph Doble behind as more liveries continue to load on in here as they make their way down towards the braking zone for turn number 1. As they head onto the brakes, you can see Doble right now looking up the inside, can't quite find it initially, but now as they really get in towards the apex he does find the move, and as they come on out, well, Addy's going to try and come back here, much like we saw Delmont versus Dory earlier on. It's going to be a repeat of that, albeit they're battling for P2 in the Prime class, not in the Pro class. And as they make their way up the hill, you can see in return Smith looking around the outside, but in the end he has to back out through fear, I think, potentially of getting caught wide and being given the elbow out onto the gravel, and plays it smart as a result as they make their way under braking here into turn number 5. Onto the brakes they go, and as they do, well, Addy right now has to really park it on apex as we right on board here with the camera of Matthew Addy looking from his gearbox and back towards the drivers behind as they make the way into turn number 7, coming through the long right hander as they make the way on out right now. Matthew Addy definitely under a lot of pressure, and Reece Watt by comparison 5 seconds up the road and just being given all the time of day to break away and make sure he does not fall into this fight. As you can see behind there, we do have Chris Daines also creeping closer and closer with every corner turn and trying to push on. But as they make the way out of turn at number 11 and down towards another lap, not long to go as they make the way in the run towards turn number 1. But as they come charging on down towards the first corner for what is for them the 11th time of asking, we look up to Adam McNally here, who has found his way up the inside of Andrew Pike, but Pike in return, coming back for the move on the inside into 2. He goes through here, but they're side by side, but look how close they are. You can separate them with a feather, and as they make their way up towards 4, McNally holds on to P7 for now for Excite Racing as they come up through the long right. Meanwhile, further back, Matt Emmons battling side by side here with Lee Horn in the battle for P7 in the Pro-Am class, P19 overall. And as the Rhino Motorsport driver here has to back off a little bit on the exit of 2 to avoid understeering and colliding with Lee Horn in the run to 3. It's very nip and tuck between them as they make the way through 4. Paul Scott on the charge, of course, the resurgence after a difficult race number 2 with a retirement, gaining 15 places and tucked in behind, and Ian Manners as well gaining a couple of places. All these drivers making great ground over the course of race number 3 so far after a difficult race 2, and Emmons goes a little bit deep as Paul Scott looks on from behind here as it is the battle of the Audi as they make their way through turn number 7 up towards 8, but no change or exchange right now as they make their way in towards turn number 8. But at any moment, of course, this could pop off and we could see another 2 wide situation as they make their way into the chicane. But coming on through and around there, all of them clattering their way over the race curves. They've got to be careful, of course, for the simple reason that they hit those curves too hard and high, they may end up breaking the suspension. But as they make their way onto another lap, already on that next lap, Sam Smith here, who finds Chris Daines on his inside. Daines goes to the move here, and I think at this point Daines, of course, wants to pick up every point he can as they make the way into turn 2, but he backs out initially, lets Smith take the long line and through 3. But now as Smith there has a poor run out of 3, Daines looks up the inside, and Chris Daines really trying to nestle in here on the inside. Smith gives him the space as they come out of 4 and down towards 5. We ride on board here with the Danish, but as they make their way down towards turn number 5, and will Daines look for on the brakes here? He does go over, he creeps on in, he's tapered in, however, but Smith gives him just enough breathing room as they come out the corner. But meanwhile ahead, Joseph Doble, the Pro-Am driver, gets it wrong and goes a bit deep, and that causes a concertina for Smith and Daines as they make their way through turn number 7. As they come up towards turn number 8 here, you can see Daines right now tucked in behind with Smith just ahead as they make their way in towards turn 10, but Daines goes in and Smith not carrying enough speed, then breaking a bit early, and Chris Daines capitalises on a bit of hesitancy from Smith and gains P10 in the Pro class, with Joseph Doble now falling behind the pair of pros. They make their way onto another lap as they come charged on through here, only 4 laps to go, including the one they've gone on to. We look to our leaders, and here is Adam Delman right now, who's trying to hold off Kieran Sharp, also Jamie Dory and Martin Shirley behind, and the SimTech Racing driver here charging after the pair ahead of him right now as he looks to try and get himself onto the pro podium and the overall podium. But as they make their way through turn number 4 and up towards 5, it's any one of these 6 drivers who could pull off the podium as Adam Delman clears away. Jamie Dory, however, has to defend versus Kieran Sharp, and right now the NDA Honda Racing driver trying to fend off the charge of Sharp and Shirley to gain some major points here in race number 3, and he of course needs these points to recover from a difficult end to the day at Donington last week as they make the way through turn number 7 and down towards 8 they go. As they drop the way in under braking here, Kieran Sharp really coming alive in this race. And to be fair, he has had a very consistent day, 2 top 5 finishes so far. Can he make it 3 on the bounce? My gut feeling says he can make it a podium here if he plays his cards right as he makes his way through the final corner. Fastest lap just being set by Will Redford, who's leading this race by 5.5 seconds over the field at 1:16.621. But I don't think any of the drivers behind him are too interested in that right now. All they're interested in is making sure they finish on the podium of the Pro and overall classification as they come down under braking here. But the long line of drivers literally topped off in terms of the pros by Nick Clibbins, and Nick Clibbins, to be fair, he started off today right up there, and then it all went wrong in race number 1. He's had to recover over races 1 and 2 to find himself in a top 10 fight, and now he finds himself in with a distant opportunity of being on the pro podium when it's all said and done. He hasn't got many laps left to go, so I think right now he has to play the patience game and hope that they really start to all fight hard. Meanwhile, further back behind, we can see here Michael Lees up the inside there of Alan McCain. And the Excite Racing driver having a difficult race number 2 and having to make a huge recovery drive over the course of race 2 and also 3, having gained 15 places since the start of this race. But onto the brakes he goes ahead of McCain here, who finds himself P4 in the Pro-Am class, with Mark Sykes not too far behind. And as they make the way through 5 and up into 6 and 7, the drivers right now of McCain and Sykes both looking at one another, I think, and thinking about that battle all the way to the end as they come on through turn 7 and into 8. But as they make the way on through, we look all the way back here to Daniel Holmer, who right now for Bright Esports battling with teammate Sebastian Bruberg, and they're battling for P29 overall as they come on through turn number 5. And I think using this as an opportunity to size one another up and also have a little bit of a friendly moment, as meanwhile we look from them to our race leaders once again. And here is Kieran Sharp battling for P3 with Jamie Dory as they make the way through turn number 3 very shortly, and up the hill they rise. And as they do, Jamie Dory finding plenty of the race curve at turn number 3. They're unsettling the car and having to back out there before it was too late. But Gavin Gardner in all of this, as we ride on board with the Audi Sport Customer Racing driver, he's also trying to look for the opportunity here to gain a position or two. But you can see Martin Shirley on the inside there. Gavin Gardner with all the space afforded to him, and Shirley goes a bit deep. That's going to cause Dory to go a bit wide, but Gardner can't find a way to make it 3 wide here. That would be crazy to go 3 wide through turn 6 and 7, and instead he takes the more sane approach, which is to wait for the cutback out of 7, and Jamie Dory losing out to Martin Shirley there with a well-placed move. And as they come down through turn 7 into 8, the Honda drivers now really starting to feel the pain of that tyre, whereas Dory goes sky high coming through turn number 9, takes plenty of curve. He's got to be so careful with those hits, those curves. At one moment that could be it for the car. He goes deep, and I think that may be Jamie Dory's car now starting to fall off the pace with the damage of the tyre wear doubling up on him. And Gavin Gardner moves up into the top 5 once again, and Jamie Dory is falling like a stone. But meanwhile we can see here it's Pike versus Manali, as Manali comes in way too hot and overextends. And Jamie Dory won't lose that one place, but he will lose more as Nick Clemens also tries to come through. But as we can see here, Nick Clemens really putting the pressure on now. We've got and Pike making the way up, and Clemens here going around the outside with Dory's just got nothing left in the car. The car has fallen away. Meanwhile, Sam Swift battling with Chris Daines in the run up towards turn 4 as well. Daines on the inside here as these two battle for P9 in the Pro Class, P10 overall as they come through turn number 4. But as we talk about them battling right now, one driver who finds himself not battling at all is our race leader. But we stay here with Smith and Daines into turn number 5, and as they come on through, Daines holds Smith at bay. But meanwhile, as he makes his way through the final chicane, he will be our first different winner in the Pro Class, and it will be Will Redford who comes to line, your winner in race number 3 overall and in the Pro classification for NDA Honda Racing. 7 seconds clear of Adam Delman, who comes home P2 ahead of Kieran Sharp P3, and it will be Martin Shirley with a drive to P4, Gavin Garner P5, Andrew Pike P6, and then Nick Clemens P7 behind with Jamie Dory P8, and then Reece Watt makes it 3 on the bounce here in Spain with 3 wins out of 3 in the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, and he will be absolutely overjoyed with his Pro-Am results today. Chris Daines holds on to the final spot of the overall top 10 and P9 in class in the Pro Class. Sam Smith P11, Joseph Doble bringing himself onto the podium P2 in the Pro-Am class, P12 overall, Michael Lees P13, Alan McCain P14, and then Mark Sykes P15 ahead of Adam McNally P16. And Adam McNally losing out right at the end there with Philip Bruberg P17, Mattman's P18, and then Ian Manners P19 ahead of Paul Scott, who rounds off our top 20. And we're outside the top 20, Mikey Doble, and we're not quite sure what happened to Mikey Doble early on in the race, but it's not the way he wanted to end today. And finally, his run of wins has been broken after 5 wins out of 6 in rounds 1 and 2. Lee Horn at P22, John Higgins Sr. P23, and then Elwin Sykes P24. P24 as all the drivers are coming to the end now with Matthew Addy P25, Jason Morris P26. As you can see, the iRacing Esports driver here, Daniel Weston P27 on a happier way to end his day today in race number 3. Sebastian Bruberg P28 ahead of Daniel Holmer in the end. You can see them both making their way along together. Pip and his teammate to P28, Nigel Stott P30, Jonathan Collins P31 as we see him coming to the end of his cool-down lap, and then Trev Anderson, the first star driver to finish a lap down at P32 with the retirees of Peroni, Higgins Jr. and also Isaac Doble. But 35 starters, 32 finishers, but what a race to finish our day of racing here, ladies and gentlemen. And let's take a look at those race results, of course subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after another 16 laps turned here in race number 3 of round 2 of the NXTCC Season 2, here today at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya National, Will Redford being the first alternate winner overall and in the pro class, with Mikey Doble having all 5 other wins, but he won in the end, did Will Redford, by 7.1 seconds over Adam Delman, who fought hard and fast for that P2, and Kieran Sharp picking up his first podium of the season, where Martin Shelley just missed out on the podium, but he will be absolutely pleased with a P4 overall in the pro class, given his recent promotion to the class. Gavin Gardner P5 there, holding on to a top 5 after a difficult start to his race number 3. Andrew Pike P6, the Sim Racing Collective in the end making it all 3 races where they finished inside the top 10 for both drivers. Pike just missing out on a top 5 in the end, missing out by only 8 tenths, with Nick Clemens P7, Jamie Dory P8, Reese Watt P9 there, your Pro-Am winner, and making it 3 wins out of 3 in the Pro-Am class today. Chris Daines P10 there with a stronger end to his day, battling his way all the way up to a top 10 finish. And then Sam Smith, best of the rest, P11. Also special mentions to the other Pro-Am podium finishers of Joseph Doble, who finished P2 on the Pro-Am podium, P12 overall, and Alan McCain, who finished 3rd on the Pro-Am podium, P14 overall for iRacing Esports. As we now come on to the individual class classifications here, we can see, firstly, starting with the pros, Will Redford taking the win ahead of Adam Delman and Kieran Sharp. That's your pro podium for race number 3. Martin Shirley and Gavin Gardner completing the top 5, ahead of Andrew Pike, Nick Clemens, Jamie Doria, Chris Daines and Sam Smith, who rounded off your top 10, with Chris Daines and Sam Smith having that battle all the way to the end for the P9 position. Michael Lease, best of the rest in the pro class, ahead of Adam McNally, Mikey Doble, Sebastian Bruberg, Gianni Peroni and John Higgins Jr., with Peroni and Higgins Jr. both having early retirements in this race. And as we come onto the Pro-Am classification, we can see here Reese Watt in the end winner by 7.4 seconds to be precise in the Pro-Am class, ahead of Joseph Dover and Alan McCain. They are your podium for race number 3 in the Pro-Am classification. With Mark Sykes P4, a great drive for him in race number 3, continuing that run of momentum from races 1 and 2. Philip Bruberg there for Bright Esports P5, and then Matt Emmons, Ian Manners, Paul Scott, Lee Horn and John Higgins Sr. completing the top 10, with best of the rest Elwyn Sykes in P11 ahead of Matthew Addy, Jason Morris, Daniel Weston, Daniel Holmer, Nigel Stock, Jonathan Collins and Trev Anderson. And then outside the top 18 there, and not to be forgotten about, Isaac Doble with that early retirement after 1 lap turned, P19 classified, but that will likely be a non-finish classification given the distance covered. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are our final results of today, and we'll very shortly be bringing in our volunteer drivers for post-round interviews to hear their perspectives on what has been an absolutely fanatical round of racing here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes for our post-round interviews. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are good to kick off our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we're going to be hearing firstly from John Higgins Sr. racing in the Pro-Am class in a race that had many ups and many downs. But the one consistent thing about it all was the fact that it was right at the tip of the spear with regards to battling action, particularly in race number 2. And then we'll be hearing from 3 pro drivers, starting with Will Redford, the NDA Honda racing driver, who has put to bed the domino run of Mikey Doble's run of wins, 5 out of 6 today, but Will Redford picking up the final win of the day. Then we'll hear from Mikey Doble himself, fellow NDA Honda racing driver, who will coming on to Bright Esports' Sebastian Bruberg. But without further ado, let's bring John Higgins Sr. into the interview room and let's hear what he had to say about today's racing. Well, as he joins me in the interview room, John, great to see you back out on the circuit today in Spain, but a day I think whereby at moments there were moments of brilliance, but also moments whereby it didn't quite go your way and everything else in between. A very dramatic day of racing.
Yeah, I was just saying to the guys in the chat, Mike is obviously waiting for an interview and stuff, and we're just having a chat. That tonight, for the first time, I actually think I drove really well. Not that the results are going to show that, but you know, I've really struggled with the braking on this thing and stuff, and yeah, I was getting it stopped and was really starting to get going, and you know, it's just frustrating. People are making mistakes in front of you and then trying to defend that. You know, I had a coming together with Chris. Was it second race, first race? I can't even remember. But you know, you can't make a mistake then go ultra defensive. And to be fair, I wasn't even trying to pass Chris coming into that left-hander, and he keeps moving over to the point where it's like, no, I'm sorry, mate, I've got to turn in, and you've got to dump him, because people have got to learn that. You know what I mean? If you're going to make a mistake, then at least have the respect for the people that are racing behind you and stuff. But yeah, frustrating night. All round, I think, you know, Junior's not particularly happy. I think he got dumped in the final race and quit, and you know, Rob's struggling. He's just gone to triple screens and just cannot get it to work. So from a HSR point of view, yeah, disappointing night. Not really, but you know, we fight to live another day. I haven't done a lot of practice. I've just started a new job. That's why I missed last week. But I made sure I was home tonight. Sort of did 10 laps of practice on Sunday and a bit of practice last night. And look, we are where we are. It was good fun. I think the track was too small and too tight for the amount of cars that were on there. But I think the racing will be good. We'll watch the stream back, whether that's tonight or tomorrow, and watch it. But yeah, listen, it's touring car racing, isn't it? It's always going to create controversy and talking points and people not being happy about certain things. But look, we'll go again. I can't do next week. I fly out to Lanzarote on Monday, so I can't do the race on Tuesday, but hopefully we'll be back for the round after that.
Oh, well, I hope you do have a nice time in Lanzarote, and indeed exchanging one hot climate on the virtual circuits for a hot climate over the Christmas period. But keeping in mind, of course, that, as you were saying there, it's been one of those days whereby there's been a few bumps and scrapes, and HSR may not have had their strongest performance of the season so far, but still plenty of positives for yourself, and as you're saying, one of your strongest drives, and I would have to agree with you on that. And let's talk a little bit about qualifying and that race 1 result finishing P13. You qualified P18, looks so the pace was coming in the Veloster as you got more and more time out on the circuit. Do you feel as though there's perhaps a little bit more time in the car if you'd had a few more laps?
The Veloster doesn't carry the weight well at all, Paul, if I'm being completely honest. And, you know, I know Jamie's put the weight thing in, which was supposed to sort things out and level the playing field. It hasn't done that. You know, I'm going to put it out there. I don't think it's done that. The Honda Civic is still completely dominant. Whether you put you could put 200 kilos in that car, and it's still going to dominate the thing. So when I finish this interview, I'll jump in with the guys from NXTGEN, because I think I think if it's a dominant car like it has been, so last week it was a Honda, yeah, but to put 50 kilos in the Veloster when it was finishing 8th, 9th, 13th, whatever, because it's the second highest manufacturer, or Hyundai is the second highest manufacturer, I think they should just dump it and say, right, okay, next week the Honda carries 75 kilos and everybody else carries nothing. And I think that will even off the playing field and give people a fighting chance, because, you know, we chose the Veloster as a team so it didn't become a Honda Civic night out, because we could have all chose the Honda Civic. It's the best car in the game without shadow, but you want to try and mix it up. And I think next gen need to look at it and go, you know what, that's fine. So the Honda will carry 75 kilos and everybody else has no weight. Don't penalize the Veloster or any Hyundai, because you've got the best car, the best guys in the best car, and they're just gonna absolutely dominate. So if you want to level it up now, don't give weight to anybody outside a Honda until it starts to level off and the championship levels off and it becomes a proper championship fight, because it's just gonna become a Honda domination thing. And then, you know what, in season 3 everybody will drive a Honda, because that's the only way to go. So yeah, we need to have a chat about that. You know, I'm pretty vocal with the guys with next gen and stuff, so, you know, hopefully Jamie and the team take on board some of that stuff. And you want it as close as it can be, and you can't just have somebody that completely, or a car completely dominating the championship regardless of whether it's got weight or not. And that for me is frustrating, because that Veloster does not, you know, I can do a 17. I did 10 laps on Sunday completely. I was actually testing on the big track. It's only when Junior said we're actually on national, it was like, oh crap, I need to change it. I did 10 laps around there and did the 17.7, and I put in the Discord, what's a quick lap? And people are like, if you're in the 17s, you'll be quick. I can't even get anywhere near a 17 with 50 kilos on board that car. So yeah, it needs reviewed. I don't think it's completely right, and I know Jamie and the team will work really hard to try and level it off. And I hope so, because you want the spectacle for the viewers, obviously.
Oh, most definitely, and some very well reasoned feedback there, John, and I'm sure the admin team will definitely take that on board as we go deeper and deeper into this season, and with the success balance being the first time it's been applied in a next gen series, so all feedback will be welcomed. But just quickly coming on to your race number 2, of course, in race number 2, finishing P17, but for the most part of that race, until there were a couple of instances towards the end, battling hard for the win in class, and quite the exchange between yourself and also peers Reese Watt, Lee Horn, Joseph Doble and Alan McCain.
Yeah, look, you just focus on the people that are in front of you. I'm not interested whether it's pro-am, pros. You're just trying to get the very best result. Obviously, Matt's not had a great night tonight. I think he got fired off in the 3rd race and stuff. So that'll, you know, it'll keep it in the mix. And, you know, there's some really good racing when it was clean. And like I said to you, Paul, I think I drove really well tonight. It's the first time I've actually, the first 2 races, I finished it thinking, you know what, I've just drove the wheels off that, and yeah, stopped it, got it turned in, did my bit. Yeah, wasn't in the top 10, but listen, look at the quality of field in this thing. It's ridiculous. You know, these guys are super quick, you know, and that's the thing. When I had the incident with Chris, was I was just quite happy to sit beside him. Chris is levels above where I am, you know, so to sit behind him and just take his draft and try and get the best place you can possible, and then it ends up in tears, and it's just like, really, dude, it's not necessary, you know what I mean? But you know, even in the 3rd race, you know, Mikey, you see him come in, he's obviously had a bit of coming together in that 3rd race, and then he's catching you every corner, and it's like, I'm not even going to fight this for 25th place. He's going to fight for the championship for sure this year. And but then he doesn't like scamper away from you. So, you know, I think the pace is there. We just need to do a bit more practice. And yeah, let's see what happens. I can't do next week. Obviously, the championship now means nothing to me because there is no drop rounds. But yeah, we'll come back on the 21st, 20th, whatever the next date is. Having been fully relaxed in Lanzarote, getting a suntan for Christmas, and we'll come back and give it the best shot.
Oh, indeed. And coming up back to the Red Bull Ring in particular, your thoughts on the Austrian circuit?
Hate it. It's boring. It's a nothing track. Yeah. I think we could have picked something better. It's just trash. It's a trash track. There's nothing about it. The only uphill left-hander when you come down, whatever that is, turn 6 maybe. That's quite a tricky corner, and if you get that right, then you'll be on a pretty decent lap time. And but yeah, the rest of it doesn't excite me at all. I think if you were going to do anything, you'd have done Barcelona full track tonight, and then done the short Red Bull Ring, because that's actually quite decent, where you come around turn 1 and then turn off it. Right, that'd have been probably a better mix, but listen, it is what it is. I don't choose the tracks. NXTGEN do that, and we'll go there and try and do his best and see what happens and try and get HSR up the team championship. You know, I looked at it last week because there was only junior racing. Out of the 6 drivers that we got, there was only 1 turned up. And to see them languishing in 8th, 9th place, so it was like, I've got to be back for Tuesday night, regardless of what happens. Even if I'd have turned up 5 minutes before it started, I was coming home tonight because I've been away on business today. So I'm coming home tonight and make sure we get the HSR name as far up that team championship as possible.
Oh, indeed, and I'm loving the camaraderie and also that motivation to do your best for Team HSR. But with that in mind, of course, and as we look ahead to 2 weeks' time for yourself when you do return, just before you do go, John, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to or give a shout out to on the broadcast this evening?
Just everybody at HSR, everybody at Cinetic. That's who I've just started my new job with. If anybody's looking for a damaged car, please log on to www.cinetic.co.uk. Go and have a look at what we've got for sale. You know, I've been involved in motor salvage since I was a 15-year-old boy, so you know, to get the opportunity to go back and work in motor salvage is fantastic, and I really thank the people there for giving me that opportunity. And you know, it feels like I'm home doing something that I've done my whole life. And also my partner Gemma, who puts up with me disappearing in this little room and testing and stuff. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a week away in Lanzarote with her. It's been long overdue. It's been rearranged probably 6 or 7 times due to COVID. You know, we probably booked it 18 months ago. So to finally get to Manchester Airport on Monday and fly out with her and just have some proper quality chill time with her. And yeah, we'll come back refreshed, and if I can get on the Tuesday, then we'll see what that brings us. So
well, with that, John, really glad to hear you're happy with the new job, and I do hope it continues to go well for you, and also hope you have a lovely time away with Gemma in Lanzarote. But with that, thank you for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on your results today and your great racing in the Veloster, and we do look forward to seeing you return, well, definitely in 2 weeks' time, if not before.
Thanks, buddy. Really do appreciate it.
Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, man.
So hearing there from Team HSR's John Higgins Sr. from the Pro-Am class, and despite the runner results which would perhaps indicate he didn't have the strongest night when all compiled together, the flip side of the coin being that he felt very happy in his performances and the pace in the car, and indeed races 1 and 2 we really got to see Higgins Sr. at his peak in terms of battling hard for position regardless of driver and class, and indeed fighting for the podium in the Pro-Am class in both of those races. And race 2 so I'm at 1 point lead in the class class, and whilst it didn't unfold the way perhaps he'd wanted it to tonight in terms of bringing home a major result, I think his time is coming in Season 2, and whilst we'll likely be missing him as of round number 3 next week at Zolder on his return to Red Bull Ring, it'll be a circuit that, as he said in his own words, not a circuit he quite enjoys, but still looking to continue to gain major points for Team HSR, and that's what it's all about for the team. And therefore you're going to be imagining he may just suck up the circuit and look to push as hard as possible, and then look for favourable circuits going into the new year, because sometimes you've got to go to those circuits you don't enjoy, get the results out of them, and then push even harder at the circuits you do love. As we now come on to our second interviewee of this evening, as we look forward now, it is Will Redford in the Pro class from NDA Honda Racing. And, well, a very different evening for Will Redford compared to what was round number 1, where things seemed to be all about the Mikey Doble show. But today it was very close between the two of them all the way through. And race number 3, seeing him finally break the string of results from Mikey Doble. And as he does join us in the interview room now, Will, it's been quite a while coming in relative terms, given the fact we've had to wait 6 races, but finally ending the hot streak of your teammate in terms of the wins and bringing home one for yourself at NDA Honda Racing must be feeling a little bit positive within yourself, for the simple reason you finally showed it's not just the Mikey Doble show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's pretty much nailed. No, last week especially, he nailed Donington. I just didn't have the pace. This week I feel I maybe should have won, maybe race 1, but I just let him get up the inside, I opened the door, and he went for it, which is fair enough. And then race 2, I made a mistake from the lead, which put him back into first again. So I think I was a lot closer this time, and I didn't quite settle in all the way until the final race, which is where I had the pace to pull away and win. I think I went like over a second quicker than what my qualifying lap was, when all the other people were only going a few tenths quicker. So I think I finally settled in and got into the rhythm a bit. But I'm happy to finally beat him, and it's a lot better when he's further down the order. So I think I came way higher scorer, which is always good.
Oh, indeed. And breaking down your night into its parts, of course, with regards to qualifying, we saw it was very close throughout qualifying with yourself, with Mikey, also with the likes of Gianni Perrone, also Jamie Dory, Adam Delmont. The lead kept exchanging place in terms of that provisional pole position. Your thoughts on that qualifying session, because it was so intense, and in the end, only hundreds of thousands separating yourselves.
Yeah, it was very close at the front, and I think during the start of the session, I was up there and I was fighting for a provisional pole. But as the cars got lighter and the times got quicker, I sort of leveled out like 3 tenths off the pole time. So it was a bit worrying going into the races where I didn't quite have the pace. But I watched Mikey's lap back that he put in to go P2, and I noticed there was a few things I was doing wrong, which I was unable to take into race 1.
Well, very tactical approach there, studying your teammate and also your closest rival in some regards, you could argue, and then capitalising on the knowledge taken. And going into races 1 and 2, of course, the two of you are sharing the upper echelons of the grid, and race 2, of course, both of you sharing that front row. Just take us through your approach to the race, given the fact also 75 kilograms of success ballast in the Honda was always going to prove tricky on those front tyres.
I think as long as you look after them, I think they're all right. The Honda carries the weight quite well. It's not too noticeable, really. I think you just lose a bit of traction maybe, but it didn't feel all that bad. I think that my main thing was just I wanted to stick with Mikey, obviously, because I knew he'd be quick and we could pull away from the guys behind, and then if there was a chance to go for it, I'd go for the move, which in both races I ended up in front of him, but then at the end of both races I ended up behind him. So I tried my best, but I just didn't quite have that that last 1-2 tenths on the last couple of laps, because I think my front tyres ended up dropping off quite a bit compared to Mikey's.
Well, indeed, and with that tyre drop off, of course, we saw at the end of both races, just falling a little bit behind, but still within arm's reach of your teammate. But then race number 3, and the first question I have to ask, when we pulled out the number 10 from the hat, so yourself and Mikey, of course, starting on row at number 5, were there any thoughts from yourself as to that starting position, or was it just head down, let's get on with the job?
I was pretty happy with it, to be honest. I'm here to have fun, and when the reverse grid is bigger, it's always a lot more fun. It also gives me more cars to put between myself and Mikey, so it's always nice. And I enjoyed it. I do enjoy the reverse grid races when I'm not being taken out. They can be quite chaotic, as what happened with Mikey. So I was lucky in that sense, but I managed to make my way through, and then I pulled off a move on the chicane to get the lead, switched back on Jamie, and I can't remember who was racing, but that was like the pinnacle moment in getting past those two, and I was able to pull away while those two fought. And then once I was out the draft, I was a bit on my own, and I could just take it easy and bring it home.
Oh, indeed. And just coming on to that, as we look back at the race in action from race number 3, and particularly your moves where you battled your way past Martin Shirley, also then Kieran Sharp, Adam Delmont, who was battling with Jamie Dory in that classical moment, and perhaps one of the moves of the season, if not the move of the season so far, and a contender, I think, come the end of the championship. Just take us through that balance of batting, because of course the 4 of them were going so hard and fast into the batting early on in the race, and you're just sort of sat there watching it and picking the right time. Was it all about, you know what, I need to try and find these moves with the minimum effort because those front tyres are going to wear away if I push them too hard?
It wasn't necessarily thinking of the front tyres, it was more just being as efficient as possible with time, because you don't want to lose too much time. Obviously, when they're all fighting as hard as they were, you know that if you just dive in and start racing them as well, there's probably going to end up being a crash. So it's more just, you know, picking the right time to go for it. And when they're all fighting really hard on the exits and they're all going in like 3 wide, the chances of getting switchbacks become, you know, rather high. And I managed to pull that off and get both of them in one corner. So it was pretty perfect, really.
Oh, indeed it was. And that move itself, obviously, you seem very proud of the move, and afterwards running away off into the distance and putting the field behind you. I have to ask, with laps just winding down at that point and the victory in sight, was there a little bit of a grin starting to creep onto your face?
Yeah, just a little.
Oh, indeed. And, well, making it a win after 2 back-to-back podiums. And, of course, now we do look ahead to round number 3 in a week's time, which is Circuit Zolder Alternate. How are you feeling for everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit?
Yeah, I mean, it should be good fun. You know, these races are good fun in general. Everyone's quite close, and they're not. There's a bit of contact there, but it's touring car racing, isn't it? So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's a fantastic him. We look forward to seeing how you take on the Belgian circuit in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Will, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to or give a shout out to live on the broadcast this evening?
Of course, big shout out to you for doing the broadcast. Shout out to my team, NDA Racing, and of course Mikey for keeping me honest. And big shout out to my dad, who I think is watching in the other room.
Well, if Mr. Redford is tuned in, great to hear you get the shout out from his son. But Will, focusing on yourself, great racing today, and congratulations on your maiden win in the series. Appreciate you joining us in the interview room, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time.
Thanks, mate.
All the best. So hearing there from Will Redford, who on reflection very pleased with his performances tonight, and in the end finding that edge to bring home the win in race number 3 and break the stranglehold that Mikey Doble had on race wins up to that point. Of course, he said there, it's helpful when your teammate and your closest rival has got multiple cars between himself and yourself and has a difficult start to the race. But at the end of the day, Will still had to put in the effort and get the job done against very fierce competition between what was Kieran Sharp, Adam Delmont, Martin Shirley, and also Jamie Dory, but in the end with a classical cutback through the chicane and picking up the 2 place that he needed to take the lead and run off into the distance. Definitely a major contender in the Pro and overall championship, and showing that he's got the pace and also the masterclass strategy to find those moves when nobody else can. But of course, we'll have to wait and see how that momentum continues into round number 3 and whether he can now start to string together a set of wins himself. As we now come on to our next interview for this evening, it is none other than Mikey Doble. And as we get ready to speak to Mikey Doble, of course, not quite having the race 3 that he wanted, but still 2 very strong performances over the course of this evening. And in fact, as he joins us in the interview room now, Mikey, unfortunately, the string of wins has come to an end after 5 wins on the bounce, but still 2 wins today, and also what was a P21 in the end, albeit under adverse circumstances. You've got to be happy with the fact that you're still the ultimate favourite in the championship, and you've shown that pace once again tonight in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with my pace I had round here. Like I said last week, it wasn't one of my favourite circuits or one I was particularly looking forward to, but to try and dig deep and get on the front row and qualifying was a good achievement, and then to just string the first 2 races together and be consistent. You know, for the faster people in the championship, the first couple of races are your bread and butter races where you've got to try and make hay essentially, and then race 3, sometimes you get the luck of a draw, sometimes you end up in some collisions, and for me, unfortunately, it was the latter tonight.
It was very unfortunate in race number 3, but we wind it back to the beginning, of course, and much like what we spoke to with Will only moments ago, your teammate, qualifying, just take us through from your perspective how tight the qualifying session was to be pole position in the end, with the provisional pole constantly switching hands and only sometimes by thousands.
Yeah, I mean, I think these cars generally get quicker as the run goes on, as the fuel burns away a little bit. The tyre degradation is not too great in these cars, so you can still deliver quick lap times towards the end of a run. Of course, the Hondas carry in 75 kilograms of ballast this week, whereas I think the Elantra, which was on pole, it might only be 35 or 25, not sure. So we knew we was up against it. So to see a Hyundai on pole was not surprising, but it was surprising, I guess, to see how many Hondas were still up the sharp end. And then, so to get on the front row was a massive tick box. And I think round here, if anything, it's a bit more of an advantage to be second than first anyway, as you've got the inside line down to turn 1.
Oh, indeed. And coming on to the racing itself, starting with race number 1, of course, we saw you make the early charge for the lead and never looking back afterwards. But, well, you had to look back at some points with your teammate, Will, right on your heels. Just take us through that dynamic, of course, because your teammates, but much like what we heard from you in the post-round interview from round number 1, also your rivals and you want to have fun out on circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never expect any of these races to be easy. And, he had very good pace in the middle portion of that first race. And, we had a fantastic lap where we were side by side through probably some of the tightest corners on the whole season, let alone the circuit. And to do that cleanly with minimal contact was really good fun. And, and then he got the lead for a few laps, and then it allowed me to kind of take a bit of a breather and learn some bits of what he was doing and lines and braking points, etc. And then once I got it together with a couple of laps to go, I thought I'd make my move and be decisive. And then I managed to get the move on him into the hairpin and then just make a little bit of a break on the last couple of laps.
Oh, indeed, it was a lovely move, and we did catch plenty of the side-by-side racing between the two of you, and great respect shown amongst peers and equals, but at the same time, in the end, you managed to stand above your teammate. And going into race number 2, of course, we saw a similar story, both of you getting a good launch off the line, albeit having to both defend from the field behind in the run towards turn 1, but after then, it seemed as though the story between the two of you continued, whereas the rest of the field were lying in your wake.
Yeah, like I say, I had pole position, obviously, for race 2. And if you don't quite nail the start, you are on the outside down to turn 1, which is quite a vulnerable position to be in, because you're susceptible to people making lunges. It's not just second place, it's third and fourth. So I kind of half expected Will to take the lead after lap 1. And then I was kind of content to sit behind him for a couple of laps to try and make the break from the rest of the field. And then, we could resume battle really from race 1, but unfortunately, he made a mistake going into turn 1 on lap 2 or 3, and I managed to get through and just really focused on delivering a couple of qualifying laps to break out of the tow. And then from there, it was just about delivering consistent lap times to a point where I knew he wouldn't be able to catch me without me making a mistake. So those first 3 or 4 laps were key to winning race 2.
Oh, indeed, and making sure to execute those laps as close as possible to perfection gave you the ability to then hold on all the way to the finish. Then, of course, race number 3, the top 10 reverse grid, and not the way you wanted to start the race. We did take a look back moments ago at what happened at the start, and it looks like a bit of a shunt and a push around.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of briefly watched the replay. It might have been a bit over-ambiguous by me, but unfortunately, this track's so tight, and I had such a launch coming off of turn 2, and I think it was Higgins I made some contact with. He was kind of coming from a little bit of a wider line coming out of turn 2, so I thought I'd make the cut back to the right hand side, and he obviously tried to hold his line, which is fair enough. And just the slightest of contact just put him into a little bit of a sideways action, and from there we just couldn't separate, and it was just unfortunate that we went into the wall. We have messaged after the race, and it's just, it's acknowledged it's one of those things, and we put it behind us and carry on. And then following that, I had a little bit of wheel damage, but it was raceable, so continued on. And then obviously the nail in the coffin was the contact with McNally through the chicane, which knocked my wheel completely out of alignment and meant I had to come in the pits and take a fast repair to continue with the race.
Or indeed, not the way you wanted it to go, and the run of luck with regards to those instants in the end, with the second instant with McNally causing the car to be in an unraceable condition. But still, you got back out on circuit, continued racing all the way, and recovered your way up to, in the end, what was P21. And you had to put some quite difficult moves on some Pro-Am drivers who definitely really wanted to make the point of there no pushovers.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a couple of interesting battles, surprising battles actually, with for 26th and 27th, but on reflection, you know, they got the chance to battle with championship leader coming through the pack, so they're going to want to make it as difficult as they can, even if it is just for pride. So get that. It's quite frustrating during the race actually when that happens, but it's just a part of the game. And unfortunately, I won't score for that last race. I believe you have to be in the top 15 to bring home any sort of points in the way the points work. So yeah, it was a bit of a wasted last race for me, but definitely one that I'm sure will come around and bite everyone in equal doses throughout the season.
Oh, indeed. And just on a brief note in regards to Pro-Ams, of course, we saw you take the triple run of wins last time out at Donington. A comment on Reese Watt, who made it a trio of wins in the Pro-Am class today?
Yeah, that's fantastic. To win 3 races, if it's your class or the overall, is very tough to do, and it kind of reflects the consistency of a driver and kind of mentality to keep the car clean, and it's something I didn't have tonight. But yeah, for him if he's won all 3 races of Pro-Am, I'll take my hat off to him. It's very well done.
Oh, indeed. And well, thinking ahead now to round at number 3 in a week's time, of course, Circuit Zolder alternate with the very fast last chicane. How are you feeling for everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit?
A little bit nervous, if I'm honest. I don't know the normal Zolder very well, let alone this alternate circuit, which I have to go and do a private test on before I allow myself to be seen by any other normal drivers, so I can get all the mistakes out of the way with no one watching. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be good. It's a tight track again, rather similar to Catalunya, so I'm sure the racing will be nonetheless intense, and it's going to be very interesting. Looking forward to it.
Well, that's absolutely great to hear. And just before we do let you go, Mikey, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, so all my family that are tuning in to watch, grandparents, aunties, uncles, parents watching from downstairs. Hope you enjoyed the racing. Thanks to you again for a great show. I'll be looking forward to watching it a little bit later on, if not tomorrow. Thanks to my teammates as well. It's make it very enjoyable to come racing on a Tuesday night in the touring cars. So thanks for everyone for coming along, and look forward to next week.
Well, Mikey, thank you to you for your stellar performances as always, and we always look forward to you taking to the tarmac. We look forward to it next week, but until then, congratulations on your run of results today, including the double win, and we look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Cheers, Paul. All the best.
Likewise, have a lovely evening. So hearing there from Mikey Doble, and on reflection, the balance of not quite being able to make it free on the bounce once again, but enjoying the racing in races 1 and 2, definitely. And, well, the pressure, of course, with the qualifying session being so close, but also seeing the Elantra on pole, of course, the Hyundai Elantra of Gianni Perrone, who put it on pole by a margin which was very close, to be fair, no more than a couple of attempts in it in the end in the fight, but, of course, the success ballast making itself known in that regard, and then running down the win versus Will Redford in race number 1, of course, his teammate, and doing the same in race number 2 of making those opening 4 laps, the critical laps, where he had to get to work in holding on to the lead and then trying to break away all the way to the conclusion. But race number 3, not quite going the way that the NDA Honda racing driver wanted it to go, with the 2 contacts, the one earlier on being survivable, but the second one being the one that ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. But in the end, still digging in, battling harder with some of the Pro-Am drivers who who took him to task, and Mikey Doble in the end rising from the ashes to finish P21 overall. Won't be picking up any points, but still going to show, and much like he said, not just him, but a lot of drivers will have moments over the course of this series where they have those unfavourable incidents, and it's about how they bounce back from them, and Doble doing so as best he could today. But now as we come on to our final interviewee of this evening, it will be none other than Sebastian Bruberg, the pro driver from Bright Esports. And as we get ready to bring him in to the interview room, well, it has been a night of a test, if you will, for our newly promoted pro driver. And as we get ready for him to join us in the interview room, it has been one, I think, which has been quite the learning experience. And I think he's got a lot he'll be taking into the next round. But as he does join us in the interview room now, Sebastian, it's been a night where you've been knocked about quite a bit. A non-start in race number 1, a P21 in race number 2, and a P28 in race number 3. But we did get to see you enjoying some great battling, particularly with your teammate Daniel Holmer towards the end of race number 3. So how have you found Spain today? Has it been a day of pain or a day of learning experience?
Oh wow! I guess learning experience then. As you said, race number 1 we weren't here. Let's say we had a car problem then. Since I got was in a bit like in a pinball game, the last race. In my point of view, I was pushed around a lot, missed a lot around like there. So yeah, I don't know. Not my best or greatest day driving, but I've been driving since about 7 o'clock today, so a bit mushed in the head, yeah. But some of the actions here wasn't really my own blame, so to say. But I don't know what to do else. It's racing, shit happens. You just need to move on and continue to get some good laps and maybe get some seconds on the people in front of us.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of things happening, we've just taken a look back on the pictures behind us with regards to what happened at the start of race number 3 for yourself, where, as you say, a bit of a pinball moment. But reflecting on perhaps some of the more positive moments to begin with, of course, starting from the back of the field in race number 2, not able to make race 1. Just take us through your approach to that, of course, because you've missed one race, the field are all settled in, and then you've got to try and make yourself or announce yourself on the scene.
Yeah, as you said, like starting from the back of the grid, I don't know what to really expect. I had a really short of time to practice on this track too. I know I was there for the test race we had a few weeks ago on this track, but going from one race to this one and a totally new track, so much warmer, so you're sliding a lot. Finding the brake points and everything, it took some time to get that in handed, but after I say 3 or 4 laps, I started to feel the rhythm a little bit. So that's when you you started to put some working on some positions, and yeah, of course having some luck with some people in front of us like crashing and stuff like that, and that helped of course a lot to take the points, yeah. But as I know, I should not drive down there because I know I have the speed in me. But as is seen also, for example, race 3, everything can happen, and then you lose all the time in front of for the lead, for example.
Well, indeed. And in those scenarios, of course, when you're battling with the drivers around you, but also looking to try and make that time, also the practice in hand and trying to gain that lap time. And on top of it all, 75 kilograms of ballast being added to the car. That doesn't help, does it?
No, maybe not that much, but to be honest, I can't really feel that much different. Of course, there you can feel the degree of the tires getting off quicker, but you also need to learn how to handle that too, because you can still drive a car that's sliding, but you need to pretty much take some how to say earlier break points, for example. So I don't know, I heard a lot of other people complaining about the like the weights and everything, but that's also the rules. You just need to figure out how to drive with that. So I'm not complaining of that at all. For my driving style, it works fine.
Well, glad to hear that in terms of being able to adapt to the additional weight in the car. And just with regards to race 3, of course, going into the race, having that difficult start, and then finding yourself towards the end battling with your teammate Daniel Holmer. Just take us through, of course, because you two are teammates, but you're also rivals,
Yes.
and you always want to be better than the other.
Of course, yeah. As you said too, like I know for sure he's a faster driver than me. So having him like getting down in my heels, that's like that's intense. Because I know him really, really good, and we've been driving a lot together. And he had a lot more practice than me nowadays, since I took a break for a while. But having him, like, I was sitting talking with him at the same time. I just told him, "Bring it on! I'm gonna give it all." And he tried to do some like last maneuver in the last chicane, but he did a small mistake, and I managed to keep him behind me over the finish line. So yeah, it was super fun. As I said before, we had some crashes in the beginning, but at least I had some kind of like battling in this race, and of course it was with one of my what do you say, teammates or nemesis. It's like the same thing here. He's my goal to beat pretty much also. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, indeed, and as we look back at you two battling into the Turn 5 hairpin on the camera behind us at the moment, fantastic moments, of course, the two of you giving one another plenty of space, but at the same time also wanting to go in hard against one another. And speaking of hard racing, of course, we head to Belgium next week for Circuit Zolder Alternate. How are you feeling for everyone's second favourite Belgian circuit?
I love it. One word. No, but seriously, that track, it's so fitted with a touring car in my point of view. It's a small track, and that's how it a little bit should be. I don't know really how it's gonna be with like 40 drivers on such a small track. It will be super interested to see what's gonna happen. I think it will be a lot of like tight fighting, and sadly to say, they're probably gonna be a safety car somewhere there, because there you have like two chicanes that's pretty fast. In my point of view, they're both on like two straights. So in those kind of cases, like as I remember from last time we had also the test race there, I was there with that. Usually, like on the first lap, when someone is like a little bit, yeah, they really want to go for the position on the first lap. When you have cold tires, it's so easy to like overbrake, like brake too late for those chicanes, and that will instantly cause a crash because everybody wants to stay on the track. And also, the first chicane, it's like a place where if you go a little bit over the curb, you instantly get a slowdown too, and that will also cause a lot of scrambling down the field with the drivers too, because it's so tight. But as I said, it's a lovely track. I think it fits perfectly with the touring cars. Yes.
Oh, well, I love that analysis there, and I definitely would agree with you. It's going to be an eventful set of races in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Sebastian, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on air this evening?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna take a thanks to Bright Esports, for example. It's the team we're driving for, and all the sponsors that helps us coming this far. And also a big thanks to Daniel Holmer and Philip Broberg, my brother, that's also driving in the series. I want to thank them too, because they're really like my life coaches also, and as a drive coaches. So I thank all to them. So, yeah.
Well, that's lovely to hear, and indeed, it's great to hear the friendships not just on the circuit, it's also outside of the circuit, and that's what being part of the team's all about. Well, with that, Sebastian, we really appreciate you joining us. Congratulations on your performances today. Perhaps not the way you wanted some of the racing to go, but still fantastic racing action from yourself, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time at Zolder.
Thank you.
All the best. So hearing there from our last interview of the evening, and we've seen in the background of him battling with his teammate Daniel Holmer all the way to the finish. That was Sebastian Bruberg, the pro driver there from Bright Esports, with a non-starting race 1 due to technical issues with the car, and then races 2 and 3, having to try and pick up the pieces and make the ground. Didn't quite work out today, but still enjoyed the racing all the same, and that's what it's all about. When you can't quite go for points, still enjoy the racing and take the fights where you can, and in the end fighting hard and fast with his teammate Daniel Holmer from Bright Esports all the way to the finish in race number 3. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our post-round interviews with our selected drivers there. You got to hear from, first and foremost, John Higgins Sr. from the Pro-Am class for HSR. Then it was Will Redford in the Pro class for NDA Honda Racing, and his teammate Mikey Doble, the Pro driver in the NDA Honda Racing team as well. And then we just heard from Sebastian Bruberg there, the Pro driver from Bright Esports. But now it is time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and if you have enjoyed the show tonight and you do want to know more about the Next Gen racing community, then why not check out either our official website, that's www.nextgenracing.co.uk, and as you can see in the background here, as well, I do believe actually we do have a little bit of a technical glitch, but it is, and we won't be able to bring it up on screen, but it is the home of fair and equal sim racing for all. So whether you're looking for leagues on a set of course, a competizione, or alternatively on iRacing, as you've seen tonight, fantastic racing action all the way through, and indeed the place to go for fair and equal racing. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our official website, and might be a bit of a technical issue at the moment, we'll have to double check into that, then you can always go to our official Facebook group, and that is facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. But now, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers will be turning their attention to Belgium for Circuit Zolder, round number 3 on Tuesday the 13th of December 2022. Today I think the tempo and the ferocity of the racing be up to quite a significant margin compared to round number 1, but who will come out on top of the very tricky Belgian circuit with its chicanes and also its short straightaways? It's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be a battle on the brakes and also curb shattering moments, there's no doubt about that. But who will come out on top in the Pro and the Pro-Am class? Of course, Mikey Doble showing a sign of a slight chink in his armour, losing a win today versus Will Redford. And in the Pro-Am class, we have seen the rise of the star of Reese Watt. Will they continue their campaigns on a high, or will we see a new set of individuals come to the top come the finish in our 3 races in a week's time? We'll be there and enjoy it all on Tuesday the 13th of December. For we have been Next Gen Racing, I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.